Chapter 270. When they heard about this mission, they realized that compared to the mission, these days of tough training were too easy. At least there was no danger to their lives. Yet this mission was truly life-threatening, so it shouldn't have been carried out by a group of students. However, since the order had been given, it was enough to show how much hope the military had placed on this group of students. After Kai Guibin announced the order, he was also a little hesitant. When he first heard about this mission, he also felt that they shouldn't be allowed to carry it out, but since the chief insisted on doing so, he had no choice. This mission was to have these 20 people find the terrorists' base camp. It turned out that the terrorists who had escaped into this mountain range had long been captured by the military. However, the terrorists were very stubborn and only gave them a rough location. Then, when the military wasn't paying attention, they actually committed suicide. During this period of time, the military had been sending people to search that area. However, there weren't many clues. However, the chief suddenly thought of having these 20 university students disguise themselves as backpackers, and then go to that area to investigate. In today's society, the new group of backpackers was very large, and many of them had a very strong adventurous spirit. There was no place they didn't dare to go, and their footprints were all over the world. Letting this group of university students pretend to be backpackers would have a very good concealment effect. Moreover, they didn't have too many traces of the military and police on them, so they wouldn't arouse suspicion. In fact, this mission was more suitable to be given to national agents, but this was also an opportunity to implement one of the ideas proposed by the chief. Thus, Tang Zheng and the others became the best candidates for the mission. Everyone looked at each other. Since it was an order, they had to carry it out. After listening to the detailed arrangements, the two classes split into two groups and headed straight for the sensitive area. This sensitive area was on the western border of the country. It had always been a place of frequent disputes, but it was also a place that many tourist explorers were fond of. Every year, many backpackers would come here to travel. Therefore, a small team of 10 people was not that conspicuous. When Tang Zheng and the others took the military plane and drove over the mountains to this small border city, everyone's nerves couldn't help but tense up. Many of them knew how to drive, and Tang Zheng had also used these 10 days to learn how to drive, so it was easy for them to drive themselves. However, in this small border town, most of the faces were of another race, so it was inevitable that they would feel a little nervous. Now, because of the terrorist attacks, the mainlanders' expressions changed at the mention of the tiger, and they had a natural fear of these unique faces. In fact, most of the people in this race were good people. The splitters were just a small group of rats after all. The mission of Tang Zheng and the others was to find these black sheep and return justice to the world. The two cars stopped in front of the youth hostel. This was the favorite place for backpackers to stay. The price was cheap, and there was a group of cultured youths chatting about anything under the sun. Most importantly, many people could use this opportunity to pick up girls and look for free romantic encounters. In short, this was a place where fish and dragons were mixed together, and it was also the place where the news was the most up-to-date. Zhou Yan had traveled with other backpackers several times before, so he was very experienced. After going through the check-in procedures, the few of them split up in twos and threes and walked into the streets and alleys, not attracting any attention. Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang disguised themselves as a couple as they walked through the streets and alleys. Tang Zheng held a single-lens reflex camera and took 2 photos from time to time. Tang Zheng, where do you think the terrorist base is? Yi Dingdang asked in a low voice without batting an eyelid. Tang Zheng smiled faintly and said, "According to the intelligence, it is in this small city, but there are tens of thousands of families here. How can it be so easy to find? Didn't that dead terrorist say a location? Let's go over there first." "That's the only way. Do you think Takashi's team will find the terrorist's lair before us?" Yi Dingdang asked curiously. "How would I know? Takashi is becoming more and more mysterious. I really can't figure him out." Yi Dingdang also frowned. He and Takashi had been in the same class since the first year of high school, so it could be said that he knew his background very well. However, this time, he realized that Takashi seemed to have changed into a completely different person, which made her feel that it was inconceivable. However, with a freak like Tang Zheng in front of her. It seemed that Takashi's change was not too difficult to accept, so she curled her lips and said, "Don't just talk about others, aren't you becoming more and more mysterious?" Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. "How am I mysterious? I'm just worried that Takashi will harm you. That brat originally had Sima Zhao's heart for you, and everyone knows that. Now that he has become stronger, he might continue to attack you." Yi Dingdang jokingly said. "What, are you jealous of him? You don't have to say. Takashi is actually not bad, he studies well, and his skills are not bad either. You saw this training, his various indicators have all surpassed yours. Yeah, who knows, maybe one day he'll confess to you." "How good would it be to confess? Maybe I'll agree." Yi Dingdang glanced at him from the corner of his eyes, and said something that he did not mean. Although Gao Daji's performance was outstanding, Yi Dingdang, who had been his classmate for 3 years, did not have the slightest good impression of Gao Daji. The contrast between before and after was too great, causing her to have a stomach full of questions. Seeing her secretly happy expression, Tang Zheng could not help but strike a blow. "Don't be so happy. You don't have that chance. Didn't you see that Ding Xiaowan is very close to him? I heard that Ding Xiaowan is the top scorer in our province. Yes, his results are better than yours, and his personality is gentler than yours, so you don't have a chance." Tang Zheng struck back. "Tang Zheng, I think it's because you saw that the little girl didn't even spare you a glance and instead had a crush on Gao Daji. So you're jealous," Yi Dingdang jokingly said. Tang Zheng curled his lips. "I'm jealous? Are you kidding me? I have a girlfriend." Men are all playful. They eat from the bowl and look at the pot, especially you." Yi Dingdang thought about the bet, and could not help but despise Tang Zheng's sinister intentions. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes. What does this have to do with me? Before he could refute, his pupils suddenly constricted, and he stared intently at the woman in front of him. Yi Dingdang's expression changed slightly. He fiercely pulled Tang Zheng's arm, and said, "Hey, you still have the nerve to say that you're not that kind of man. Look at your current appearance. You look like a pervert. Please, we're pretending to be a couple. I'll be jealous if you act like this." As he spoke, he stretched out his hands to block in front of Tang Zheng, just like an ordinary couple quarreling, directly blocking his line of sight, and said, "You're not allowed to look at other women. Why are your thoughts so dirty? I'm right in front of you, and you're actually looking at other women in front of me." Yi Dingdang's heart was filled with anger, and a trace of jealousy emerged. Am I not good looking? She was much prettier than the woman from before. He actually didn't look at her but looked at that woman instead. This was simply preposterous. Yi Dingdang couldn't help but feel that his dignity had been insulted. Tang Zheng frowned, and pulled Yi Dingdang away, only to discover that the woman's figure had already disappeared. He didn't know if she had heard their movements and ran away. "You're still looking. I really want to dig out your eyeballs." Yi Dingdang was unable to restrain his anger. Tang Zheng was flustered and exasperated, and roared in a low voice, "Yi Dingdang, what's wrong with you? I think you're the one who's crazy. No, it's your beastly nature that's blinded your eyes by desire. We're carrying out a mission, and it's still broad daylight, yet you have designs on a strange woman. Are you still human?" Yi Dingdang indignantly complained, thinking to himself, why didn't he realize that he was such a beast before? No. He had discovered it before, but he wasn't as brazen as he was now. Of course, Tang Zheng wasn't beastly, but he saw that the shape of the bulge in the woman's clothes was very similar to a gun. The person who carried a gun in this place was definitely not an ordinary person. It was very likely that he was a terrorist. He was originally looking for a needle in a haystack. How could he let go of such a suspected terrorist after so much difficulty? Just as he was about to quietly follow them, he was interrupted by Yi Dingdang, allowing the other party to slip away from under his nose. He was so angry that he met Yi Dingdang's eyes. Staring at each other, he lectured in a low voice. "Yi Dingdang, you know that we're carrying out a mission, so can you not be so unreasonable? Who do you think the woman I saw just now was? Didn't you notice the strangeness of her body?" Yi Dingdang curled his lips and said, "Tisk, how can you be so righteous? You stared at her body and said something strange. I think it's just an excuse." Tang Zheng's hands fixed her arms like a vice, making her unable to move, and said, Yi Dingdang, if you continue to cause trouble, then I won't bring you out next time. I won't bring anyone else to ruin my good fortune. What do you mean? Yi Dingdang rarely saw Tang Zheng so serious. I'm saying that the woman just now might have a gun on her body, Tang Zheng said while gnashing his teeth. This troublemaker, he really didn't understand the situation. Women were ruining things. Yi Dingdong's eyes suddenly widened as she said in surprise. Really? Of course it's true. Think about it. What kind of person would a woman carry a gun in this place be? Humph, this is all because of your unreasonable pestering, causing us to lose such an important clue, Tang Zheng said in a flustered and exasperated manner. Yi Dingdong's imposing manner suddenly weakened. She pouted and said, I didn't do it on purpose. Who told you to stare at others with such lecherous eyes? It would be strange if I didn't treat you as a pervert. Tang Zheng was too lazy to explain, so he could only continue to search. However, after searching for a while, he did not see the woman's figure again. And when he went to the place provided by the dead terrorist, he did not find any other suspicious people. The two of them gradually walked to the center of the city. Yi Dingdang pointed to a shopping mall and said, Let's go in there and sit for a while. I'm tired and thirsty. The two of them had been searching for a long time, so they were indeed a little tired. Tang Zheng nodded, and the two of them walked into the shopping mall, towards a cold drink shop. Suddenly, Yi Dingdang grabbed Tang Zheng's arm and exclaimed in a low voice, Look over there. Chapter 271. What are you thinking again? Yi Dingdang clenched his teeth and said, You're the one who's crazy. Look at who that woman is. Tang Zheng turned his head to look. Damn, he had worn out his iron shoes to look for her. But it was actually the woman who had disappeared without a trace. At this moment, her hand had already reached to her waist and pulled open the corner of her clothes. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted. Gun, there really was a gun on her waist. She had already pulled out the gun, aimed it at a person in front of her and pulled the trigger. The muffled sound of the gunshot did not attract much attention in the noisy shopping mall. After she fired the gun, she did not panic in the slightest. Instead, she calmly pointed the gun at another person and pulled the trigger. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of gunshots rang out, and a few people immediately fell into a pool of blood. Yi Dingdang was dumbstruck. This woman was actually a terrorist. If she had not stopped Tang Zheng just now, all of this would not have happened. These people would not have fallen into a pool of blood. She fell into a deep state of self-blame. Looking at the pool of blood, her eyes couldn't help but turn red. Tang Zheng was not as sentimental as her. When the terrorists opened fire, it was already too late for him to stop them. When the gunshot rang out, he moved. He was still about 10 meters away from the terrorist, so when he rushed in front of her, she had already fired 5 shots. In such a dense crowd, there was no need for accurate marksmanship. Even a 3-year-old child could hit someone. Tang Zheng did not have the mood to pay attention to the 5 people lying in a pool of blood, and snatched the pistol from the terrorist. She obviously did not expect that someone would dare to stop her, and was stunned for a moment, but she was not afraid. Instead, she revealed a sinister expression and shouted, All of you die. The handbag in his other hand was thrown into the air. Tang Zheng immediately saw a few thin red and green wires from the gap in the handbag that had not been completely pulled open. Without a doubt, there was a bomb inside. Tang Zheng felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over him. He felt a chill in his heart. This group of people was too crazy. In the past, they used knives to chop him. Now they had upgraded to guns. Finally, they even used bombs. The lethality of a bomb explosion was much greater than that of a bullet. It was unknown how many people would be killed or injured in such a dense crowd. This would definitely become a terrifying incident that would shock the entire country. I can't let the bomb explode here. Tang Zheng had been taught by his grandfather to be a good person since he was young. Ever since he became a cultivator, although he had killed many enemies, there was still a trace of kindness in his heart. At this moment, it completely erupted. He wanted to do his best to protect these people. So he had no time to deal with this vicious woman. He simply picked her up and threw her in the direction of Yi Dingdang. Yi Dingdang was already running over. Her reaction was half a beat slower than Tang Zhang's, but she still rushed over to stop him without hesitation. When she saw the woman flying towards her, she reacted quickly and immediately caught her. As soon as the woman landed on the ground, she rushed out, but was firmly held back by Yi Dingdang. She struggled with all her might, but how could she be a match for Yi Dingdang? Yi Dingdang slashed her carotid artery with her palm, and she immediately fainted. When the others saw the bloody scene, they screamed in fear and rushed towards the entrance of the shopping mall like a flood. Yi Dingdang was also pushed out of the door by the crowd. However, she kept holding on to the terrorists tightly and was not scattered. She was tall like a swan. She stretched out her long neck and looked in the direction of Tang Zheng. She saw Tang Zheng soar into the air like a rock, spreading its wings and rushing towards the handbag. Yi Dingdang instantly understood what was in the bag and her face turned pale. Bum. Tang Zheng actually went to catch the bomb without any fear of death. At this moment, his image was incomparably glorious and tall, completely overlapping with the image of the hero in her heart. His body seemed to be emitting a dazzling light that made it hard for people to open their eyes. But her heart immediately jumped to her throat. If the bomb exploded, what would happen to Tang Zheng? Before she could think clearly about this problem, Tang Zheng had already grabbed the bag and clearly saw the detonator inside. His heart couldn't help but tremble, but his hands didn't tremble at all. Instead, they were even steadier than usual as his mind raced. He wasn't proficient in bombs, and there were definitely no bomb disposal experts here. This bomb would definitely explode, and there were so many people in the mall. What should he do? He didn't know how much time was left, so he could only go all out. He glanced at the entrance of the mall and saw that many people had already rushed out. He jumped and stepped on a person's shoulder as if he was walking on flat ground. With the help of many people's shoulders, he quickly rushed out of the mall. Seeing this scene, the crowd erupted into earth-shattering screams and many people cursed. But time was of the essence, and Tang Zheng couldn't care less. This was the only way he could think of, and that was to take the bomb away from here as soon as possible. Finally, he rushed out of the mall. The crowd had already scattered and fled. Tang Zheng saw the huge fountain not far away at a glance. He quickly rushed over and shouted, "Bomb, get down! Bomb, get down!" The people around him were scared silly. Looking at the handbag in his hand, they panicked and fell to the ground. Some people quickly fled to an open space. Whoosh! Tang Zheng threw the handbag from afar, drawing an arc, and the handbag flew into the fountain pool that was spraying water high into the air. The fountain was very big. The people around it had either fled in all directions or were lying on the ground, clinging to the ground. Tang Zheng was also lying on the ground, holding his head with both hands, staring intently at the movement in the fountain. Boom! With an explosion, a huge water column soared into the sky. Countless water droplets shot in all directions, mixed with more than 100 steel balls, shattering the billboards on the roadside. Many trees were also shot, riddled with holes. If Tang Zheng hadn't thrown the bomb into the water, one could imagine how terrifying the explosion would be in the crowded mall. There would probably be hundreds of casualties. Tang Zheng had saved hundreds of people in a single thought. If Tang Dahai knew, he would definitely be very happy. Tang Zheng wasn't happy at all. Instead, he was angry. His anger almost ignited him. This group of terrorists was too crazy. They actually wanted to kill so many innocent people for no reason. Not a single one of these terrorists could be left alive. He climbed to his feet, but the screams were still ringing in his ears. Many of the people lying on the ground did not dare to get up. They were shivering in fear. This scene made the people of the city feel a hellish fear. Tang Zheng immediately saw Yi Dingdang and the terrorist near the entrance of the shopping mall. Tang Zheng quickly rushed over, took the terrorist and said, "Let's leave this place quickly. Aren't we waiting for the police?" "No need. Once the police come, we won't be able to ask her any questions, and it will be easy for our identities to be exposed. Since we've captured this person alive, we definitely can't let the clues end in our hands," Tang Zheng said gloomily. Yi Dingdang looked at him with a complicated expression. His heroic actions just now had saved so many people. He was really too amazing. She did not refute but obediently nodded. "All right, we can't go back to the youth hostel. There are too many people there. The moment we appear, We will be exposed. We have to go to a hidden place. The two of them were not weak in martial arts. Carrying the terrorist, they moved as if they were flying, and before the others could react, they had already left the scene. Not long later, an ear-piercing alarm sounded, and many police cars rushed to the scene. Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang quickly ran towards an abandoned courtyard that they had passed by earlier, but on the way, they heard a series of gunshots and 2 explosions, which meant that the terrorists had planned more than one terrorist attack. Damn it! Tang Zheng's face was ashen. Although he had stopped them, he was not an immortal in the end, so he could not calculate that the terrorists had other actions. Without a doubt, the other 2 terrorist attacks would definitely cause a lot of casualties. He had no way to stop all of this, but he had a way to prevent similar things from happening in the future. However, the stepping stone for all of this would fall on the terrorist in his hands. Yi Dingdong's eyes were red. As she ran, she said guiltily, "Tang Zheng, I'm sorry. If I didn't cause trouble for no reason, none of this would have happened. It's none of your business. These things were all done by this group of crazy people." Seeing the guilt in Yi Dingdong's eyes, Tang Zheng advised, if Yi Dingdang fell into a long period of self-blame, it would be difficult for her to wake up from this nightmare in the future, let alone pull herself together. Actually, this really had nothing to do with Yi Dingdang, but it should be blamed on the terrorists. Normal people should not pay for the actions of terrorists. When Yi Dingdang heard his words, her eyes revealed a look of gratitude. She bit her lips, and her originally rosy lips slowly turned pale. The two of them jumped into the abandoned courtyard. The walls blocked the view of the outside world, making it difficult for ordinary people to find them. Ding-ling-ling. Tang Zheng's phone rang. This was the phone they had prepared before leaving, and could only contact their teammates and superiors. Zhou Yan's voice rang out. "OL3, where are you? There was a terrorist attack in the city, and now it's chaotic everywhere. OL4, gather all of our team members and return to the youth hostel. Don't go out for the time being. Pay attention to your own safety, and defend against all possible dangers. Dingdang and I are outside taking care of some matters. We'll meet up later," Tang Zheng ordered. "Yes, OL3. Be careful." Tang Zheng's performance in the base training was not as eye-catching as Yi Dingdang and Takashi's, but all the members of Class 1 had already established an unreserved trust in him that had never changed. As a result, when he gave this order, no one questioned it. Instead, they chose to carry it out unconditionally. Tang Zheng tied the terrorist to a chair, and then the savior became her. When she woke up, she saw Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang. Her eyes revealed a look of fear, but she quickly calmed down and revealed a venomous gaze like a venomous snake. Chapter 272. The terrorist's venomous gaze did not scare Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang. Instead, it allowed them to clearly recognize the nature of this group of people. Look at the latest chapter. These people had already lost their most basic humanity, and could not be measured by common sense. You have obstructed our sacred cause. You will definitely die miserably, the terrorist said while gnashing his teeth. Tang Zheng said disdainfully, "You have harmed the innocent, and you still want to talk to me about holiness? Looking at your face, I want to twist your head off and kick it like a ball. We are sacred warriors. Even if we die, what is there to be afraid of?" The terrorist said fearlessly. F***CK, bullshit holiness. I came here this time to uproot your terrorist organization. Tang Zheng grabbed him by the collar. "Speak. What other accomplices do you have? Where is your base camp here?" The terrorist sneered and said, "You want me to speak? Impossible." This woman was only in her 30s. Normally, at this age, she would be the mother of a child. Her words would exude the radiance of a mother, but she was different. She only had a vicious aura around her. Yi Dingdang said with red eyes, "Tang Zheng, you must think of a way to make her speak. Otherwise, there will definitely be more casualties. Don't waste your energy. I am a sacred warrior. How can I be scared by you?" The terrorist was stubborn. "Is that so? Then let me see how holy you are." Tang Zheng suddenly grabbed the other party's hair and slammed it against the wall, causing blood to flow out. The terrorist revealed a pained expression, but he laughed out loud. I want to kill you heretics and chase you out of this holy land. Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang looked at each other. This person was a fanatical believer and had been completely brainwashed. It would not be easy to pry open her mouth. Yi Dingdang cast a questioning look at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and said, Dingdang, go out. I'll ask her again. I must pry open her mouth. Tang Zheng, don't do anything stupid, Yi Dingdang advised. This was an operation organized by the military. If people were to spread rumors, it would be extremely disadvantageous for Tang Zheng. I understand. You go out and stand guard, Tang Zheng said without hesitation. Yi Dingdang hesitated for a moment and gave Tang Zheng a deep look. She then turned around and walked out, closing the old wooden door behind her. A look of disdain appeared on the terrorist's face as he said, You heretics are usually high and mighty, pretending to be benevolent. Now you're finally going to reveal your true colors, right? You want to rape me? Haha, you can sully my body, but you can't sully my noble soul. You will fail in the end, and we will definitely drive you out of this land. Tang Zheng said contemptuously, Who's interested in your body? Your soul is already so dirty, and this body is even dirtier. It doesn't matter if you don't tell me. I have ways to find out your secret. Don't worry, I won't kill you. I won't torture you, and your secret will still be exposed. After he finished speaking, Tang Zheng's big hand covered her head. Facing this kind of crazy guy, Tang Zheng did not have the slightest bit of mercy. Using the soul-searching great technique to turn her into an idiot was already letting her off lightly. The terrorist screamed, his eyes immediately becoming sluggish, and Tang Zheng finally obtained some useful information. It turned out that there was indeed a stronghold of a terrorist organization in this small city. However, it was not the base camp of the terrorists as the military understood. The base camp was somewhere else. This woman's position in this terrorist organization was not high. She only knew the location of this stronghold, but she did not know the base camp. According to what she had accidentally heard, the base camp was outside the country's borders, a mysterious place that ordinary people would not know about. Tang Zheng opened the wooden door and walked out. Yi Dingdang asked anxiously, How is it? We've already gotten the information we want. Let's go to the youth hostel. Tang Zheng walked out with large strides. Yi Dingdang looked into the room and saw that the terrorist was sitting on the chair with a dull look in his eyes, as if he was a completely different person. What happened to her? Yi Dingdang asked in surprise. She knows that she has sinned deeply, so she became a fool, Tang Zheng said indifferently. Yi Dingdang was in disbelief. He knew that he had sinned deeply and became a fool? How was that possible? However, when she realized that Tang Zheng had already walked to the entrance of the courtyard, she immediately chased after him and asked, Are we just going to leave her here? Tang Zheng said without turning his head, If you are willing to kill her, I have no objections, but I am more inclined to let her fend for herself like this. Killing her directly would be letting her off too easily. As he spoke, a murderous aura surged forth, causing Yi Dingdang's heart to tremble. The expression in his eyes changed slightly as he stared straight at Tang Zheng's back. Inadvertently, she realized that there was already a difference between her and Tang Zheng. He was no longer the obedient student she first knew. Yi Dingdang did not turn around to kill the terrorists. Instead, he left the abandoned courtyard with Tang Zheng and closed the door. Before they even returned to the youth hostel, Su Hongwu's call came, asking about the terrorist attack just now. Yi Dingdang did not hide anything and told the other party about the information he had obtained from stopping the terrorist attack. Su Hongwu was extremely happy. It turned out that the person who stopped the terrorists and threw the bomb into the pool without caring about his life was Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng had really given him a great surprise. With such a soldier under his command, as Tang Zheng's commander, how could he not be happy? Tang Zheng, you have completed your mission very well this time. Next, you guys wait and see. The military will send people to search for that stronghold. Su Hongwu said decisively. Tang Zheng said, Company commander, our class requests to participate in the battle. These terrorists are not human, they are beasts. We absolutely cannot sit idly by. Su Hongwu rejected. No, you have seen their style. They completely disregard the lives of others. What if you have casualties? Tang Zheng retorted. Company commander, when the regiment commander recruited us, he said that this training was life-threatening. And this time, we have witnessed the misdeeds of this group of people with our own eyes. If we don't do something, we will feel uncomfortable and ashamed of the military uniform we have been wearing during this period of time. These words were sonorous and forceful, causing people to feel deep veneration. Su Hongwu suddenly fell silent. After a long while he said, I will ask the regiment commander for instructions. Wait a moment. Tang Zheng quietly waited for the phone call, not saying a word. Yi Dingdang looked at his chiseled face and her heart was slightly moved. She couldn't help but combine him with the image of the hero she had yearned for. A trace of shyness flashed through her eyes, but she quickly covered it up and said, Tang Zheng, have you really decided to go to the terrorist stronghold? Tang Zheng nodded without hesitation. Of course this time. We must try our best to catch all of these people in one fell swoop. In the past, I did not have a strong impression of these people, but this time, I have a direct impression of them. These people cannot be left behind. If they are left behind, they can only be a scourge to this country and its people. Tang Zheng's words were sonorous and forceful, leaving no room for doubt. Yi Dingdang nodded in agreement. All right, then this time we will go straight to the root of the problem. We will definitely catch all of these people in one fell swoop. Tang Zheng revealed a look of admiration. Although Yi Dingdang was competitive, this courage was definitely worthy of praise. Tang Zheng, the regiment commander has something to say to you. Su Hongwu's voice sounded from the phone. Tang Zheng, I am Kai Guibin. Company Commander Su reported your plan to me. All right, I promise you, but you must remember, this time you must not be rash. First, you must wait outside, then wait for our main force to arrive, and then cooperate with them to attack together. You must pay attention to your own safety. Kai Guibin said in a deep voice. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. All right, this time we will definitely not let these people escape. After hanging up the phone, the two of them returned to the youth hostel. The other 8 people immediately surrounded them and talked about what they had seen and heard today. They had split up to investigate, but they did not find the terrorists. Instead, they heard the explosions and gunshots. Only then did everyone understand that an even worse terrorist attack had happened this time. They hurriedly returned to the hostel and did not go out again. However, many people in the youth hostel had already checked out and left this troublesome place. There were not as many terrorist incidents in the country as there were abroad, but in recent years, there had been an increasing trend, which was really testing the nerves of the people. The atmosphere in the youth hostel was already quite solemn. This was the first terrorist attack here, and everyone was worried about whether there would be a second round. In fact, Tang Zheng was also worried about whether there would be a second round of attacks, so he had to race against time. Regardless of whether there would be a second round of attacks, he had to control this force as soon as possible. He told the others his thoughts, and then everyone was filled with righteous indignation. No one retreated. Instead, it was as if they had been injected with chicken blood, and they vowed that they would definitely capture these people. The 10 of them left the youth hostel and drove towards their destination. The atmosphere in the city was already very solemn. Although there were still many people on the streets, they all looked nervous and vigilant as they looked at each other, as if they were afraid that another terrorist would appear out of nowhere. From the discussions of the passers-by, they found out that the terrorist attack this time had already caused dozens of casualties. Fortunately, the other 2 explosions were not in densely populated areas. Otherwise, the casualties would have been even greater. There were already many police cars and policemen on the streets. They were fully armed. Fortunately, Tang Zheng and the others did not have the characteristics of terrorists on their faces. Furthermore, they were dressed as standard backpackers, so they were able to pass through the layers of checkpoints and arrive at their destination. Their destination was actually the center of the city. These terrorists were really too bold. They did the opposite. Instead of hiding in the suburbs, they deliberately mixed in with the densely populated areas, creating an effect of darkness under the light for the people who were investigating. There were not many tall buildings in this small border town, and there were many small courtyards like the one in front of him. They were very secretive, And if Tang Zheng had not used the soul-searching technique to obtain the information, he would have doubted the authenticity of this information. The 10 of them got off the car from afar, then approached the small courtyard in 2s and 3s. There were many pedestrians nearby, so they were not very conspicuous. Tang Zheng looked around and found that the military's main force was not present. Kai Guibin had repeatedly warned them not to make a move before the main force arrived, because that would be too dangerous. Of course, Tang Zheng would not risk the lives of others, so he decided to wait for a while. Suddenly, the door to the courtyard opened, and a few fellows wearing large jackets walked out of the courtyard. They were all wrapped up tightly. Chapter 273. Looking at these guys who were dressed differently from ordinary people, Tang Zheng's pupils suddenly shrank. It was the end of September, and the weather was not too hot, but these people were wearing thick clothes, which meant that there was something under their clothes. Bomb. This thought immediately popped up in his mind. After seeing the power of the bomb earlier, Tang Zheng was particularly sensitive to this kind of thing. Seeing a few people quickly walk out of the courtyard, trying to blend into the crowd, and the main force had not arrived yet, he knew that he could not wait any longer. Thus he made a prompt decision and ordered, "Stop them, but you must be careful. They might have bombs on them." The others were not frightened by the bomb. Instead, they were filled with righteous indignation and quickly walked towards these people with Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng locked onto one of the tall and big guys with a glance. This person had a fierce look on his face, and it was obvious that he was not a good person. The other 9 people surrounded the other 5 people. Not only were there men, but there were also women and 10-year-old children. If they did not know that they were terrorists in advance, it would be hard to imagine that these seemingly harmless guys would be so crazy. These 6 terrorists were very alert. When they saw a few people walking towards them, they immediately reacted and scattered to escape. Tang Zheng was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of the big guy. He reached out and grabbed his arm. The big guy struggled to resist, but he found that it was as if he was clamped by a vice and could not move at all. The big guy had a ferocious look on his face and shouted, "Detonate!" He wanted to press the detonator in his hand, but Tang Zheng controlled him so tightly that he could not even move his fingers. Tang Zheng tore off the other party's clothes. Sure enough, there were rows of detonators tied to the waist. It was a shocking sight. His shout was an order. The others stopped running and pressed the detonator in their hands without hesitation. Tang Zheng's teammates were scared out of their wits. Not only did this group of people not put other people's lives in their eyes, they did not even take their own lives seriously. They must not let the bomb explode. This was the thought in everyone's mind. They all rushed towards the person in front of them and held down the other person's arm tightly, preventing the other person from activating the detonator. Yi Dingdang also pounced on a little boy in front of her. However, this little boy was expressionless. Seeing that Yi Dingdang was about to pounce on him, he did not hesitate to press the detonator. Boom! Flesh and blood splattered everywhere, and the tremendous impact directly turned the boy's body into a mass of blood. Countless pieces of flesh and blood flew in all directions. Yi Dingdang was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. Her body and face were covered in blood and flesh, but this was nothing because the fatal shockwave had not yet spread out. Yi Dingdang did not retreat. Instead, she extended her arms and used her body to block the shockwave. Bang! A powerful force directly sent Yi Dingdang flying, and she fell to the ground far away. Yi Dingdang's eyes rolled back, and she fainted unconscious. The others turned pale with fright and screamed, "Yi Dingdang!" There was no response. Tang Zheng's face immediately turned pale white. He did not expect the terrorists to be so ferocious, and their movements to be so smooth. Even more so, he did not expect Yi Dingdang to disregard her own safety and use herself as a meat shield, blocking the explosion's shockwave. He chopped at the neck of the big guy in his hand, causing him to faint and lose his threat. Then he handed him over to the others and quickly came to Yi Dingdang's side. He felt her pulse and fortunately, she was not dead yet. However, her body was covered in blood and flesh, and she looked to be in a sorry state, even a little terrifying. Tang Zheng did not care so much, and immediately grabbed her hand to check on her injuries. Her injuries were very serious. Her internal organs were shaken, and even a few of her bones had been broken by the shockwave. His face was extremely gloomy. This damned group of terrorists. He suddenly turned around and stared at the terrorists who were being controlled, wishing that he could kill them with a single slash. At the moment of the explosion, the crowd in all directions had already fled with their heads in their hands. They had fled this place of trouble, so the originally bustling street had become sparsely populated. Through more and more bloody lessons, the people of the country had already understood that spectators would have to pay the price of blood, especially when it came to terrorist incidents. If they were not careful, they would lose their lives. Sinosaurus looked at the unconscious Yi Dingdang and quickly asked, "Lao San, how is she?" "She won't die for the time being. Let's take care of these guys first, then take revenge for Dingdang." Tang Zheng gritted his teeth, stood up, and strode towards the courtyard. "Be careful." The others turned pale with fright as they reminded him. Walking in like this was equivalent to being a live target. Tang Zheng turned a deaf ear to them. With a bang, he kicked open the courtyard door and rushed in. Bang! With the sound of a gunshot, a bullet landed where Tang Zheng was just standing, causing a cloud of dust to splash up. The others originally wanted to rush in as well, but the powerful firepower immediately suppressed them. The terrorists in the courtyard clearly understood that this stronghold had been completely exposed, so they decided not to hide anymore. One bullet after another shot out crazily, and the courtyard immediately became riddled with holes. The others did not dare to approach at all. They could only watch as Tang Zheng rushed into the courtyard like a ghost. Then, screams sounded out one after another. Everyone's hearts turned cold. They did not know what was going on inside, but at least one thing was certain. Tang Zheng was not dead, because the screams were coming from the enemy. At the end of the street, a few cars quickly drove over and stopped at the entrance of the courtyard. Dozens of armed soldiers got off the car and surrounded the courtyard. Sinosaurus and the others were also surrounded. Wu De strode out of the car, coldly glanced at the few of them and said, "What happened?" Zhou Yin immediately went up to him and explained the situation in a concise manner. Wu frowned and said, "Didn't we order you not to act rashly?" Zhou Yin quickly explained, "At that time, these terrorists were all carrying bombs, so they must have wanted to launch a new round of terrorist attacks. That's why we acted decisively. Otherwise, when they slipped away, it would have been too late." Wu pointed at Yi Dingdang, who was lying on the ground, and asked, "What happened to her?" Zhou Yan said, "When Yi Dingdang was preparing to subdue a terrorist, the other party detonated the bomb. She used her body to block the shockwave and protect the others." When the accompanying soldiers heard this, they could not help but reveal looks of shock and admiration. This woman's spirit was even stronger than that of an ordinary man. However, it was obviously not the time to be emotional. The sounds of gunshots and screams continued to ring out in the courtyard as Wu De strode into the courtyard. Zhou Yin quickly reminded him, "Instructor Wu, it's dangerous inside." Wu De snorted and pushed open the courtyard door with great force. He walked in fearlessly, and the others finally saw the situation in the courtyard clearly. The smell of blood assaulted their noses, and there were more than 10 corpses lying on the ground in a mess. Blood dyed the ground red, and Tang Zheng stood in the middle of the courtyard like a god of death, holding an old man in his hand. Other than them, there was no third person standing in the courtyard. Everyone was dumbstruck. Tang Zheng had taken care of so many terrorists by himself, and he had truly killed them. To ordinary people, killing people was an unimaginably terrifying thing, but it seemed that killing people here in Tangzheng was as easy as killing chickens. Everyone looked at Tangzheng with deep fear in their eyes. Even the members of 502 turned pale, and some of them even vomited while supporting themselves against the corner of the wall. Wu's pupils constricted. Killing people was nothing to her. She could no longer remember how many people had died by her hands. However, what she was concerned about was why Tangzheng had such a strong fighting strength. According to the level of Tangzheng's performance in training, he definitely did not have such a strong fighting strength, nor did he have such a decisive killing ability. However, all of this was right in front of her eyes, and the facts spoke louder than words. Tangzheng was far more powerful than she had imagined. Wu instantly understood that Tang Zheng usually held back, and couldn't help but be extremely interested in this student of his. Bang! Tang Zheng threw down the old man in his hand. This person was a small leader in the terrorist organization, and also the leader of the people in the courtyard. The old man had already become a fool. He collapsed on the ground and stared blankly at the bloody scene. Wu frowned, walked in front of Tang Zheng and asked, "What happened to him?" "Nothing." He was scared silly. Tang Zheng glanced at Wu, his heart moved. This woman had actually been following by their side. The majority of the troops this time must have been brought by her. Then he had to hide it in front of her. This old man had been turned into a fool by his soul-searching method. He did not know if she would be able to find out. Wu stared at the old man, and only after a long while did he ask, "Why did you kill so many people?" "They are not humans. They are a group of beasts that do not take other people's lives seriously. Then I will let them have a taste of the same thing," Tang Zheng said coldly. Actually, he was provoked by these human bombs and Yi Dingdong's injuries, which was why he started a massacre. These people were a scourge, and he didn't even want them to live long enough to receive the punishment of the law. Instead, he used his own methods to completely end their evil lives. "If you kill them, then how are we going to find their accomplices?" Wu asked in dissatisfaction. Tang Zheng shivered. He had actually already obtained enough information from the old man's mind, but he did not plan to make it public, because he had actually discovered a huge secret from the old man's mind. This secret he did not dare to tell anyone else, especially this marshal in front of him. Tang Zheng pointed at the few captives who did not succeed in self-destructing and said, "Aren't there survivors here? Slowly interrogate them yourself." After speaking, without waiting for the other party to react, he walked out in large strides and picked up Yi Dingdang. No one dared to stop him as there was still quite a bit of blood on his body, but it was without a doubt the blood of the enemy. However, the killing intent on his body was enough to make everyone tremble in fear. Tang Zheng carried Yi Dingdang into the car and shouted to his team members, "What are you still looking at? Go to the hospital." As if waking up from a dream, everyone climbed into the car and drove towards the hospital as fast as lightning. Wu Yuan looked in the direction where the convoy disappeared and muttered to himself, "His aura is a little familiar. I seem to have seen it somewhere before." Chapter 274. Yi Dingdang had already been sent to the emergency room, while Tang Zheng and the other team members were restlessly waiting outside. Everyone's mood was very gloomy, especially when they saw the blood on Tang Zheng's body. Everyone had a feeling of palpitations. Free novel portal. The shock that this class leader's actions had caused to their hearts was truly unimaginable. However, when they thought of the actions of those terrorists, they felt that it was especially satisfying. Shouldn't terrorists die? Of course they should. Tang Zheng had killed so many people, but not only did they not feel any disgust towards Tang Zheng, they instead felt that he was like an ancient chivalrous swordsman. Seeing injustice on the road, he righteously took action. The three members of room 502 looked at each other. Zhou Yang pushed Wang Shiji. "You are the boss, go and persuade third brother. We are very worried about him with his stern face and murderous aura." Sinosaurus also did not dare to provoke Tang Zheng. Although he was usually sloppy, when he saw Tang Zheng like this, his heart palpitated a little. As the boss of the dormitory, Wang Shiji could only take on this heavy responsibility. He took a few deep breaths to muster up his courage and sat beside Tang Zheng, advising, "Third brother, don't worry. Yi Dingdang will definitely be fine. Moreover, it's all thanks to you that we were able to destroy the stronghold of this terrorist organization and prevent more people from getting injured. You are a great contributor, and Yi Dingdang is also a great contributor." Tang Zheng raised his head, glanced at him and laughed self-deprecatingly. "What qualifications do I have to say that I am a meritorious person? I am your class leader, and I did not protect you well. This is my responsibility." Wang Shiji shook his head and said, "This is an emergency, how can I blame you? You have already done very well." The others all nodded in agreement. "Yes, Tang Zheng, we all have to thank you. If not for you, we would have already died in the hands of those terrorists." "Meritorious person? Do you need me to hold a celebratory feast for you?" A cold voice rang out. only to see Marshall leading a few people over in large strides. Instructor Wu. Everyone stood up one after another. Only Tang Zheng gave her a bland glance, not moving at all. Wu coldly snorted and said, Tang Zheng, you are really amazing. You killed all those important people, but only left behind a bunch of small fries. If you want to dig out more information from them, it will be harder than ascending to the heavens. How do you think we should report on this mission? Originally, he thought that he had dug up the nest of the terrorist organization, but now it seemed that everything was just a dream. All the clues were cut off here. If Tang Zheng hadn't killed all the important people, this would have been a big hole in the terrorist organization. They could have followed the vine to the melon and really wiped out the other party. Wu was not a soldier, but this time, she was ordered by the sect master to carry out a mission in the army. This time, leading the newcomers and digging out this terrorist organization was her most important mission. However, all of this was completely disrupted by Tang Zheng. How could she not be angry? Especially the aura that Tang Zheng had displayed earlier. It had caused her heart to be in a mess. The more she pondered over this aura, the more she felt a sense of disgust for no reason. This was her strength. As a pre-celestial martial artist, although she had lost her memories of the ordinary balance, she had left behind some things, such as a mysterious feeling. Previously, Tang Zheng's performance was not that outstanding, so this feeling was not that strong. However, this time, Tang Zheng's murderous look finally made her feel a trace of a familiar aura. Tang Zheng was originally very careful, but he did not expect that Marshall would also come to this small border city, so he did not restrain his aura in time, and was discovered by Marshall just like that. Marshall had already confirmed repeatedly that Tang Zheng was definitely not a martial artist, so his superb skills were extraordinary. If he was not a martial artist, then his skills would have been tempered through countless battles. But Tang Zheng was also a university student. How was this possible? In short, his body was filled with a mysterious sense of contradiction. Therefore, Marshall paid special attention to him, and specially came to the hospital. Firstly, it was to visit Yi Dingdong's injuries. The big shots above were very concerned about Yi Dingdong's injuries. Secondly, it was to investigate Tang Zheng's background once again. And thirdly, it was to see if there was any way to remedy this mission. Tang Zheng did not even raise his head as he coldly said, You can do whatever you want. A few people from Class 2 followed behind Wu. Takashi did not say anything, but the others could not help but shout. Tang Zheng, how can you speak to Instructor Wu like that? I don't need you to teach me how to speak. Tang Zheng unhappily choked. The two classes were originally in a competitive relationship. This time, Class 1 was the first to discover the stronghold of the terrorist organization, causing the people of Class 2 to be in a very passive position. After Takashi led Class 2 to this small city, he stayed in the most high-end hotel. Then, he sent out his team members to search for the whereabouts of the terrorist organization, while he stayed in the hotel to enjoy himself. When the terrorist attack happened, their class did not collect much useful information. However, they heard that Class 1 had a bountiful harvest and even participated in the capture of the large army. This made the people of Class 2 very unconvinced, and also made Takashi very unhappy. He felt that he had lost face in front of his teammates, but there was nothing he could do. Later on, he heard that Tang Zheng actually disregarded orders and took the initiative to attack, causing Yi Dingdang to be severely injured. He felt that the chance to turn the tables had come, so he hurriedly found Marshall and went to the hospital with her to visit Yi Dingdang. Actually, he wanted to see Tang Zheng make a fool of himself. Seeing Tang Zheng's vexed expression, Takashi's face was expressionless, but his heart was already blooming with joy. Tang Zheng, you also have a day like this. Back then, I wasn't your match, and you played with me, causing me to lose all my face in front of Yi Dingdang. Now, I want to return all the grievances I suffered to you. I really hope that Yi Dingdang dies this time. Then you will be nailed to the pillar of shame. A vicious look flashed past Takashi's eyes. No one knew what he was thinking, because he was no longer the original Takashi. The original Takashi was tall and strong. He thought that he was smart, but in fact he was extremely stupid. He only knew how to bully his classmates, bully the weak and fear the strong. After meeting Tang Zheng, this tough guy, he hid in a corner and no longer dared to raise his head to resist. Now this Takashi had been completely reborn. His personality had undergone an earth-shattering change, because he was not only Takashi, but had also fused with another person's personality. Tang Zheng had also seen this person before, and had even killed him with his own hands. This person was Daoist Tianji's disciple, the cultivator who had kidnapped Mu Hongyan and Nana. In that small alley, Tang Zheng had used true fire to defeat him by surprise, and then killed him. At that time, Takashi had seen this scene with his own eyes from a faraway car, and was scared out of his wits. After Tang Zheng and Mu Hongyan left, he quietly went to the corpse, but he did not expect that the remnant of the corpse's divine sense would parasitize his body, and then slowly fuse with Takashi's divine sense, evolving into a new Takashi. This Takashi was good at enduring patiently, and was vicious and merciless. He was like a poisonous snake eyeing Tang Zheng covetously from the side, and there were many times when he wanted to kill Tang Zheng. But after weighing the pros and cons, he realized that he was not Tang Zheng's opponent, and prematurely exposing himself would only cause him to die again. Then he would not be as lucky as the first time, and as long as he was exposed, Tang Zheng would definitely kill him, and he would truly kill him. Takashi was well aware of this point, so he chose to endure. At the same time, he went to the place where Daoist Tianji had hidden the secret manuals, and found Daoist Tianji's most treasured secret manuals. This was something that Daoist Tianji would not normally let him see. Even though he was Daoist Tianji's disciple, Daoist Tianji was very stingy when it came to imparting cultivation techniques, and would not pass everything to his disciple, so as to avoid starving the master to death. This was also the reason why when Tang Zheng killed Daoist Tianji, he went to the cave to search for his belongings but found nothing. No matter what, Tang Zheng would never have guessed that all of this was done by Takashi. It must be known that when Takashi found out that his master had been killed by Tang Zheng, he was so terrified that he could not live without fear. All day long, he hid in the corner of the classroom, not daring to look at Tang Zheng for fear of attracting his attention. After confirming that Tang Zheng would not pay attention to him, he began to cultivate diligently, and from the secret manuals he found a secret method to hide his strength, so to outsiders, and even to Tang Zheng, he was just an ordinary person. He studied diligently while cultivating. Not only did his grades improve rapidly, but his cultivation also increased greatly. It seemed that after fusing with Takashi, his body had been transformed, making it suitable for cultivation. He was overjoyed, hoping that one day he would be able to avenge himself and kill Tang Zheng. During the college entrance exam, he relied on his identity as a cultivator to obtain third place. While Tang Zheng was unwilling to show his face, he enjoyed the feeling of being the center of attention. In the past, he had followed Daoist Tianji to hide from place to place, and he had had enough of that kind of life. Now that he found that there was another way to live, he gladly endured it. His ambitions were great, and he was no longer limited to the small matters of the past. He wanted to use his identity as a cultivator to create a big blue sky. He actively used the opportunity of exposure to come into contact with many important figures, creating his own network. And this time, he wanted to use this opportunity to establish a good relationship with the military, so that in the future they would be able to help him. Therefore, he worked especially hard during the military training, striving to obtain the military's appreciation. Only he did not think that he and Tang Zheng would meet on a narrow path and become competitors. Especially in this mission, Tang Zheng was one step ahead of him in discovering information about the terrorists, which made him furious. Hearing his own team members provoking Tang Zheng, Takashi did not stop them, but instead gave a meaningful glance to his team members. The others understood and mocked. "Yo, you don't have much ability, but your temper is quite big. You caused your team members to be injured. What qualifications do you have to be the class monitor? If I were you, I would buy a piece of tofu and kill myself." Everyone else also agreed. Sinosaurus and the others' faces suddenly changed, and they were furious. They rushed up and aggressively roared. "Little brat, what did you say? You want to be beaten? Let's fight. Who's afraid of who? Can't we talk about it? With Takashi's support, the members of Class 2 were full of vigor, eager to give it a try. Chapter 275. Shut up. Suddenly, Marshall growled. No one dared to speak anymore. They could only stare at each other angrily. Fairy, do you still want to fight in front of me? Marshall asked sternly. Takashi sneered in his heart, but advised in a good voice. Everyone, stop talking about Tangjung. Although it was because of his rashness that Yi Dingdang was injured, I think he didn't want to do that in his heart. I just hope that he won't be so reckless in the future. Takashi's words seemed to be helping Tangjung out of the predicament, but in reality, he was hiding a malicious intent. He deliberately said that it was because of his rashness that Yi Dingdang was injured. Tangjung suddenly raised his head and stared straight at Takashi. This brat was much smarter than before. He actually knew how to put a spear in his words. Takashi smiled faintly at Tangjung. Tangjung coldly snorted and ignored the other party. Wu said sternly, Tangjung, I have already decided to let you rest for a while. Don't worry about this matter anymore. Sinosaurus and the others were indignant, and said, Why? Why? It's because he didn't listen to orders and acted on his own accord that caused this situation. All the clues have been cut off. Marshall replied. Then we also need to rest for a while. You guys can slowly investigate. I won't serve you anymore. I'm a student, not a soldier. If you have the guts, just shoot me. Sinosaurus roared, then pointed to his own head, completely fearless. Takashi's mouth curled up into an imperceptible sneer. Go ahead and cause trouble. The more you guys cause trouble, the more unlucky Tangjung is, the happier I will be. The others were also excited, especially the members of 502. Zhou Yang and Wang Shiji also stood beside Tangjung without hesitation, and said, Right, we won't serve you anymore. How can you accuse us like this? Third brother risked his life for this result. Guosu and Wang Tong looked at each other, and stood up without hesitation. We will stand with Tangjung. The other three also stood on Tangjung's side without hesitation. Looking at this group of people, Takashi was a little stunned. He never thought that Tangjung would have such high prestige. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Wu's face was ashen as he said, Do you want to rebel? Everyone was speechless, but there was a sense of unwillingness between their brows. Marshall stared at Tangjung and said, If your people don't want to work anymore, then scram back. I don't need such people. Such people can only drag me down. Sinosaurus and the others hesitated for a moment before saying resolutely, Fine, we'll leave. We won't do it. Tangjung looked at everyone, an indescribable feeling welled up in his heart, and said, Don't mess around. Everyone trembled. Sinosaurus said indignantly, OL3, if they don't recognize our efforts, then what are we still doing here? Tangjung understood that these people were not like him. If they had the recognition of the army, it would definitely be beneficial for them in the future. He could not be so selfish as to ignore the interests of others for himself. Don't say any more, you guys continue with your mission. Instructor Wu, don't you want me to quit? I'll do as you wish, I'll quit. Tangjung said. OL3 squad leader. The others shouted, wanting to stop him. Tangjung waved his hand, indicating that they should not try to persuade him, and said, I have already made up my mind. Takashi was secretly delighted in his heart. Tangjung, oh Tangjung, you think you're smart. Without you, the mission this time would be mine, haha. Alright, since that's the case, I'll report it to the higher-ups. You should return to the capital immediately. Marshall said without any trace of politeness. Tangjung was not angry, but instead heaved a sigh of relief. As long as he did not do anything under Marshall's nose, he would be even safer. As for whether he had contributed or not, he did not care. The reason he came to the army to gain experience was to increase his own strength. Now that there was an anomaly like Marshall, his plan was obviously not going to work. Moreover, he had obtained even more important information from the terrorist old man's mind. He still had more things to do. I want to stay behind to take care of Yi Dingdang. I'm not in a hurry to return to the capital. Tangjung said. Up to you. Then he stared at the 8 people in Class 1 and said, "Next, you will all be merged into Class 2 and led by Takashi. If I hear anyone disobeying orders, don't blame me for being impolite." Sinosaurus and the others were indignant, but when they saw the look in Tang Zheng's eyes, they suppressed their anger and did not flare up. "What are you arguing about? This is a hospital. Who is the patient's family?" Suddenly, the door to the emergency room opened. The doctor walked out and scolded unhappily. Tang Zheng hurriedly walked over and said, "I'm her friend. May I ask how she is?" "The patient is out of danger, but she still needs to be hospitalized for observation and treatment," the doctor said. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. As long as there was no danger to their lives, it was a blessing in disguise. To be able to survive such a close encounter with an explosion was already considered lucky. Actually, this was not a fluke. After all, Yi Dingdang was a martial artist of the 9th stage of the body refining stage. The moment before the explosion, she had already mobilized all the inner strength in her body to protect the vital parts of her body. Moreover, the explosion this time did not have steel balls or other objects. Instead, it was a pure explosion. The power of the explosion was incomparable to the one outside the shopping mall. Yi Dingdang was pushed out. Her face was pale, and she had already woken up. She turned her head to look at the crowd outside the door and weakly asked, "How's the operation?" "Don't worry, it's already over." Tang Zheng comforted her. Yi Dingdang heaved a sigh of relief but revealed a look of guilt. "I'm sorry. This time I didn't do a good job and caused everyone to worry." Tang Zheng shook his head and said, "This is not your fault. You are a hero. If you did not risk your life to block the shockwave, others would have been injured. Therefore you saved others." Yi Dingdang was a little embarrassed. Since she was young, she had a hero complex. Therefore, her ideal partner was a hero. Now that she was actually called a hero by Tang Zheng, she could not help but have mixed feelings. Really? She found it hard to believe. Of course it's true. The others nodded their heads solemnly. Dingdang, you saved everyone. If you are not a hero, who else would dare to call themselves a hero? Yi Dingdang's face flushed red. Alright, the rest of you follow me. Tang Zheng, you stay in the hospital to take care of Yi Dingdang, Wu said coldly. The others reluctantly looked at Tang Zheng, especially the members of 502 whose eyes were red. They said, "OL3. Tang Zheng waved his hand and said, "Continue with the mission." The few of them had no choice but to nod. Yi Dingdang saw that something was wrong and hurriedly asked, "What's going on?" Zhou Yin couldn't wait to say, "They won't let OL3 carry out the mission." What? Yi Dingdang was shocked. She struggled to sit up but frowned in pain. Seeing this, the doctor hurriedly said, "The patient cannot move around. Otherwise, it will affect the wound. The one in pain is you." Tang Zheng immediately pressed down on Yi Dingdang and said, "Don't be agitated. Recuperate well. I'll accompany you in the hospital." Yi Dingdang said indignantly, "Why didn't I let you carry out the mission? This time it was clearly you who discovered the terrorists, and it was also you who found the clues. Furthermore, if it wasn't for your prompt decision, those terrorists would have slipped away and launched the first round of attacks. At that time, the casualties would have been even greater." Yi Dingdang's question was powerful and resounding. It was also the thoughts of the rest of the class as they all looked at Instructor Wu. Wu's expression did not change in the slightest as he coldly said, "He has done a lot of things, but he has also ruined all of our plans. He has killed all of the leaders of the terrorists, leaving behind a few small fries, causing our plan to fail completely. He will have to pay the price for this." "Kill all the leaders?" Yi Dingdang was shocked. He looked at Tang Zheng suspiciously. Tang Zheng said calmly, "Those people deserve to die. They can only be a scourge if they stay in this world." Zhou Yin explained. At that time, Ol San saw that Yi Dingdang was injured by the explosion and was stimulated. That was why he started a massacre. No matter who it is, no matter what the reason is, he has to pay the price for ruining our plan. There is no room for maneuver," Wu said straightforwardly. When Yi Dingdang heard these words, there was only one voice that echoed in his heart. Tang Zheng actually did not hesitate to kill for him. Girls all had hero complexes, and Yi Dingdang was even more so. Wasn't it just a girl's fantasy to kill in all directions in anger for a beauty? Tang Zheng had done it for her. Yi Dingdang's heart was in chaos. She did not know what to say. Only when everyone else had left did she regain her senses. But when she realized that only Tang Zheng was by her side, she felt embarrassed for the first time, and finally mustered up the courage to look at him. Then, she couldn't help but recall the scene in the shopping mall. His heroic image was deeply imprinted in her heart. Didn't her family always want her to pursue Tang Zheng? In the past, she thought that this was an absurd idea, but now she realized that Tang Zheng was actually in line with the image of the lover of her dreams. What should I do? Do I really have to chase after him? Her heart was in chaos, and her face turned even redder. Seeing that Tang Zheng was looking at her, she quickly averted her gaze. Tang Zheng looked at her in surprise and asked, "Your face is so red, are you feeling unwell somewhere?" "No," Yi Dingdang said in a mosquito-like voice. "Then why are you blushing?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. Yi Dingdang was usually carefree, so he would not have such a girly attitude. Yi Dingdang really wanted to roll her eyes at him. Was there anyone who would ask someone so directly? Couldn't he see that she was embarrassed? Tang Zheng really did not know that she was embarrassed. Seeing that her complexion was getting better, he couldn't help but touch her forehead and said, "You don't have a fever. Do you want me to find a doctor to take a look?" "You're the one with a fever," Yi Dingdang said in a bad mood. "This time you were eliminated. I'm sorry, I didn't think that things would turn out like this." Tang Zheng shrugged his shoulders indifferently and said, "What does that have to do with you? It's me who doesn't want to stay here anymore. I still like to live a free and unrestrained life." Tang Zheng was speaking the truth. In these 10 days of living in the military camp, he could also follow orders, but in his heart, there was always a voice calling out to him. He always yearned for a free and unrestrained life. Chapter 276. Yi Dingdang did not believe that he liked to be free and unrestrained. She thought that he was deliberately saying these words to comfort her. She was even more excited and grateful in her heart, and her face was as red as an apple. "Tang Zheng, thank you." She held it in for a long time before saying softly. Tang Zheng was actually a little unable to adapt to her gentleness, and asked uncertainly, "Are you really all right?" "Of course I'm fine." "All right, if you're fine, then I'll be leaving first," Tang Zheng said as he heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Dingdang said in surprise, "Didn't you say you were going to stay with me?" Tang Zheng said, "Aren't you fine now?" "I have something to do," Yi Dingdang said snappily. It was too unkind of him to want to leave her behind so quickly. "What's the matter?" My body hurts. I'm not feeling well," Yi Dingdang said after holding it in for a long time. "Then I'll go call the doctor." "You're not allowed to go." Yi Dingdang hurriedly stopped him. Tang Zheng was baffled. "Didn't you say you weren't feeling well? How can I not call the doctor?" If Yi Dingdang wasn't unable to move, she would definitely want to kick him away. "I'm a patient, can't you stay with me?" "But I'm pressed for time." "Pressed? What else do you want to do?" Yi Dingdang looked at him suspiciously. Tang Zheng cursed inwardly. He had actually let it slip. The information in the old man's mind was extremely urgent, so he did not dare to delay any longer. If he went too late and the other terrorists received the news and retreated, then even if he rushed to that place, it would already be too late. "Nothing," Tang Zheng said perfunctorily. Yi Dingdang looked at him suspiciously, snorted and said, "So mysterious, I don't know what you're up to." "What the hell can I do?" "Well, no matter what you do, I can't control you in my current state anyway. But you have to stay with me in the hospital today. What if I have something urgent, and I don't have a familiar person with me?" Yi Dingdang requested. Tang Zheng was right. After all, Yi Dingdang was a girl. Moreover, she needed someone to take care of her. Seeing that he did not say a word, Yi Dingdang did not know what he was thinking. For the first time, she also fell silent. Tang Zheng was thinking about his next plan, so he did not say anything. Suddenly, the room became strangely quiet. Yi Dingdang glanced at Tang Zheng from time to time. She found that he was actually quite handsome and had a special flavor. No wonder Feng Shishir was with him. After an unknown period of time, Yi Dingdong's bladder felt a little bloated. Her face turned even redder as she thought to herself, "Why do I want to pee? And at a time like this, it's just me and him." This was a predicament that she had never thought of. She could not help but feel anxious. "Hold it in. I have to hold it in." She clenched her teeth. After a while, her cheeks turned from red to green. She could not hold it in anymore. Tang Jung noticed that something was wrong with her and quickly asked, "Ding Dang, what's wrong?" Yi Ding Dang was extremely shy. She did not want to say anything, but the bloating in her bladder was making her collapse. "Tang Jung, I want to go to the bathroom." Tang Jung was stunned for a moment. After confirming that he did not hear wrongly, he immediately remembered that in the Sherwan Mountains, he could not move and Mu Hongyan helped him solve his physiological problems. Could it be that this time, he also wanted to help Yi Dingdang solve her physiological problems? He could not help but feel a rush of excitement. This idea was too wretched, but there was no doubt that it was very tempting. Seeing Tang Zheng's eyebrows reveal a trace of a malicious expression, Yi Dingdang wished she could find a hole to crawl into. However, her physiological problems could not be left unsolved. Otherwise, it would be even more embarrassing if she wet the bed later. Tang Zheng took a deep breath and broke the silence. "I'll take you there." Then he went out to find a wheelchair and carried her into it. Yi Dingdong's body inevitably had intimate contact with his. Her body immediately straightened, and her emotions were extremely complicated. Tang Zheng also felt the changes in her body. He could not help but find it funny. It was really interesting that the carefree Yi Dingdang also had this side. He carried her into the wheelchair and pushed her along the corridor to the bathroom. Yi Dingdang felt that countless people were looking at her along the way, which made her feel even more embarrassed. In fact, all of this was her illusion. It was normal to push patients in the hospital. When they finally came to the bathroom, Tang Zheng was in a dilemma. Although this matter was very tempting, it would be strange if he was not beaten to death as a pervert if he rushed into the bathroom like this. However, it was impossible to take her to the men's bathroom, right? Yi Dingdang was also in a dilemma. She did not know what to do. Instead, her body went soft and did not have any strength. She did not even have the strength to speak. Tang Zheng coughed and knocked on the door of the women's bathroom. He tried to make his voice sound masculine. "Is there anyone inside? I want to bring the patient in. If there is anyone, please tell me. Otherwise, I will come in." After a long time, there was no response. Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang both breathed a sigh of relief. If there was someone, it would be even more awkward. Tang Zheng carried Yi Dingdang in his arms and walked into the bathroom. Sure enough, there was no one inside. He walked into a cubicle and gently put Yi Dingdang down. The anesthetic effect of her surgery had worn off, but her legs still did not have the strength to stand. She only had a little strength in her hands, so she could not solve the problem by herself. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Tang Zheng hesitated for a long time and said, "Do you want me to help you?" Yi Dingdang did not know where she got the strength to nod. Then, Tang Zheng helped her take off her pants little by little. She was wearing a patient's outfit, and her pants were very loose. With a light pull down, it fell to her knees, and two shining white thighs immediately jumped into Tang Zheng's eyes. More importantly, an even more alluring scene swayed in front of his eyes. Yi Dingdong's brain had exploded. She was in a mess, and her thoughts had drifted to God knows where. No matter how carefree she was usually, the natural shyness of a woman still prevailed in this situation. Tang Zheng did not dare to look at her anymore. He quickly carried her and squatted down like he was helping a baby to pee. He aimed at the urinal. Yi Dingdang was so nervous that she did not pee. Tang Zheng was embarrassed. He could not carry her like this. If someone broke in later, this position would be too intimate. Even if he was thick-skinned, he would still feel embarrassed. Shusho. He immediately came up with a plan and whistled. Sure enough, this trick worked. The sound of splashing water immediately rang out. Yi Dingdong's body was like water. She collapsed in Tang Zheng's arms and panted. She was even more tired than after a big battle. She was physically and mentally exhausted. When she was finally done, Tang Zheng pulled up her pants again. He suppressed the desire to see what was going on, and pretended to be serious. But the more he acted like this, the more Yi Dingdang felt that he must have seen something. She could not remember how she was carried back to the wheelchair, and then returned to the ward. She did not even notice that Tang Zheng had left the ward. When she found that she was alone in the ward, she anxiously looked around. There was no sign of Tang Zheng. Did he run away? He actually took advantage of her and ran away. That was too ungrateful. She was a little indignant, and her heart was even more confused. She did not know how to face him in the future. Just as she was thinking about this, Tang Zheng came back. She was about to shout when she found that there was a person behind him. She was shocked. What was this middle-aged woman doing here? Tang Zheng immediately revealed the answer. Dingdang, I have something to do first. I specially invited this caregiver to take care of you. Caregiver? Yi Dingdang widened her eyes in shock. Yes, I still have something to do. I have to leave for a while. Tang Zheng really had something to do. Although taking care of Yi Dingdang would definitely relive the stimulation just now, there was too much stimulation. He was very afraid that he would not be able to control himself. Moreover, in the long run, the relationship between the two of them would be very awkward, so to be on the safe side, he decided to hire a caregiver to take care of her. If Tian Chanzi was here, he would definitely scold him. Such a good opportunity was wasted. Wasn't this a great opportunity to take down Yi Dingdang? In fact, although Tang Zheng already had a girlfriend, his method of pursuing girls was still at a very early stage. After all, he and Fang Shishir were originally in love with each other, and both of them were in love with each other, so he did not spend much effort to pursue her. Moreover, his focus right now was not on Yi Dingdang, but on the terrorist organization. This was because the information he received was that there was actually the shadow of the demon clan behind the terrorist organization. This was a huge secret. If it wasn't for that old man's special status in the terrorist organization, he definitely wouldn't have known about this. This was the reason why he hid this news from the military. The demon clan was involved with cultivators, so if he told the military, it would be equivalent to telling the martial sect. Although the demon clan's methods were cruel, they were still cultivators, so he wanted to follow the clues and see if he could find out more about the cultivators. As a result, he had no choice but to leave the military and investigate alone. This matter was of great importance, so he definitely would not let a second person know about it. He could not even tell Yi Dingdang. If he delayed for too long and let the people of the demon clan escape, then he would not have such a good opportunity in the future. The master and disciple he had met in the past were all from the demon clan. However, their levels were too low, so Tang Zheng did not know much useful information from them. And this time, the demon clan behind the terrorist organization was actually able to organize so many operations, daring to go against the country, so they would not be the stragglers of the demon clan. That was why Tang Zheng placed so much importance on them. In fact, the demon clan was not much different from other cultivators. It was only because they cultivated special cultivation techniques that were extremely sinister and ruthless that they could forcefully raise their cultivation. It was intolerable for the heavens, so they were rejected by others and were labeled as demon clan. Tang Zheng originally did not have much malice towards the demon clan, but after seeing the way the terrorist organization did things, he did not have the slightest good impression of the demon clan. No wonder even in the cultivation world, the demon clan was regarded as a different race. The demon clan did not have the slightest bit of mercy in their hearts. They were too ruthless. If he had the chance this time, he would definitely eradicate these demons. Chapter 277. Yi Dingdang was unable to hold back Tang Zheng. When night fell, Tang Zheng disappeared into the night, and then took advantage of the night to cross the mountains, crossing the border outside the small border city. Reading in comfort the western border was too long, and it was impossible to guard against people crossing the border. In recent years, smuggling along the border was rampant, but it was mostly drugs and the like. Some countries in the West were in constant war and economic depression. Many places specialized in growing drugs and transporting them to other countries. Tang Zheng found out about this secret smuggling route from the old man's mind, and easily avoided the border guards' patrols. When Tang Zheng stepped out of the country's border and looked back, This one step separated him from the border of another country. This kind of feeling was really strange. He did not stop, and quickly advanced in the night. The true qi in his body was crazily circulating, and the earth-shrinking technique allowed him to display his speed to the extreme. When the sky was about to brighten, he arrived at a valley. There was nothing strange about this valley, but Tang Jing knew that this was the base camp of the terrorists that the military had been looking for. The valley was steep and the mountain path was rugged. As soon as Tang Jing stepped in, he discovered that there was actually an array in front of him. This array was not very difficult, but it was enough to make people lose their way. 3. They could not tell the direction, and thus could not accurately enter the valley. When Tang Jing saw this array, he understood that the situation he had obtained was not false. There really was the shadow of the demon clan behind these terrorists. This array could only be set up by cultivators, which meant that there was definitely a cultivator living inside. Tang Jing did not dare to be careless anymore. Using the array knowledge he had learned from Tian Chanzi, he carefully passed through the array, and the scene in front of him suddenly opened up. This was a village, and there were dozens of families living here. The village had already woken up in the morning light. Tang Jing hid in a bush and observed the situation of the village. The villagers walked out of their houses in 2s and 3s, and then walked towards the mountain behind the village. Tang Jing followed along and passed by a small mountain peak. The scene in front of him caused him to be flabbergasted as a tall altar appeared in front of him. Complicated patterns were carved on the altar, and the surface of the altar was a strange blood-red color. The hundreds of villagers scattered around the altar and sat down. They raised their hands above their heads and chanted loudly. The awkward chant lingered above the altar. Tang Jing's head suddenly trembled as a strange feeling quietly spread out from the bottom of his heart. Tang Jing's heart was extremely cold. There was no time to save these 3 women. It was useless to rush out now. The chanting became louder and louder. Whoosh! A blood-red light rose from the altar and floated above everyone's head. It formed a blood-red pattern. This pattern changed rapidly, as if something was going to rush out from it. The old man looked excited. He raised his hands and chanted loudly, "Lord Demon God, the demon race is calling for your return. Please sprinkle your anger on this land, and let the demon race return to the world." Tang Jing was shocked. This scene surprised him. This living sacrifice was to summon the so-called demon god. Tang Jing did not know what the demon god was, but from the old man's excited expression, he could tell that it was not an ordinary character. He did not expect that using sacrifice could summon such an important character. If the demon god was summoned, the demon race would become stronger. More people's lives would be threatened. Moreover, the demon race would return to the world. That was to say, if the demon race's army came to the world, it would be a catastrophe. No, I can't let them succeed. Tang Jing made up his mind. He looked up again and saw that the blood-red pattern had turned into a whirlpool, spinning rapidly. The blood-red light churned, as if something was about to rush out. The villagers' chanting became louder and louder. They looked at the churning whirlpool as if they were possessed. When the blood-red light fell, the villagers were all dyed blood-red. Strands of blood-red light rose from the villagers' bodies and merged into the blood-red whirlpool. This was the villagers' blood essence. Bang bang bang. The villagers fell to the ground and died one after another, but the others did not seem to notice and continued to chant loudly. This scene was extremely strange. Tang Jing felt a chill in his heart. The demon race was too strange. This method was completely unimaginable. And because of the villagers' blood essence, the blood-red whirlpool churned even more violently. Roar! A heaven-shaking roar came out from the blood-red whirlpool. The old man took the lead and knelt on the ground. The other practitioners also quickly knelt down and prostrated themselves on the ground. They shouted in unison, "Welcome, Lord Demon God." Tang Jing knew that he could not wait any longer. The demon god was about to appear. Just as he was about to launch an attack, he heard a series of earth-shaking explosions in the distance. Rumble! The earth quaked and the mountains shook. Even the blood-red whirlpool in the sky shook a few times. An angry roar came out from the whirlpool. Tang Jing hurriedly turned his head towards the direction of the explosion. That was the entrance of the valley. It was the place where the array was set up. He did not know why there was an explosion. Could it be that someone had attacked? The old man raised his head and looked back at the entrance of the valley. With a sinister expression he roared, "Damn it, this group of people actually came. The matter of welcoming Lord Demon God must not be delayed. They must be stopped. As long as Lord Demon God descends into the world, these people are just ants. There is nothing to fear. The 4 of you stay here and guard. The rest of you come with me to stop these intruders." The old man brought a few practitioners away from the altar and rushed towards the entrance of the valley. The blood-red whirlpool continued to churn, but the chanting stopped because all the villagers' blood essence had been sucked away by the blood-red whirlpool. In order to summon this so-called Lord Demon God, the demon clan did not hesitate to sacrifice the lives of hundreds of people. They were truly insane. The explosion at the entrance of the valley sounded again. Obviously, it was to attack the array. For ordinary people, this was probably the only way. Moreover, the array was not very exquisite and profound. It was far inferior to the 10 directions killing array that Tang Zheng had encountered at the foot of the ordinary balance mountain. Therefore, under the attack of guns and cannons, this array would definitely not be able to hold on. The other party would definitely attack the valley. Tang Zheng was actually very curious about who the attackers were, but now it was obvious that he did not have the chance to explore. The most important thing now was to stop this sacrifice. Whiz! He suddenly jumped out and rushed towards the altar. Who is it? The 4 demon clan practitioners reacted quickly. They turned their heads and saw a figure flash by. The intruder was already in front of them. Stop him! The demon clan roared. They all raised the weapons in their hands and welcomed Tang Zheng. A few cold lights flashed as they attacked Tang Zheng from head to toe. The War Soul sword was already tightly gripped in Tang Zheng's hand. Clang, 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 clang. A series of metal clanging sounds rang out, and the 4 demon clan as quickly retreated. Tang Zheng was fighting 1 against 4, but he was not at a disadvantage at all. His fighting spirit was high, and the blood in his body was boiling. Amongst the dozen or so cultivators, the only one that he was afraid of was the old man. The old man's cultivation was higher than his, and as for what realm he was at, he could not see through it. However, the 4 people in front of him were obviously only at the chi condensation stage, so Tang Zheng was not afraid at all. However, the 4 demon clans were shocked by Tang Zheng's move and shouted in shock. "Cultivator, you're actually a cultivator." There were too few cultivators in this world. Even as a demon clan, they rarely saw other cultivators, but Tang Zheng's sudden visit shocked them. Cultivators were different from martial artists. The impact on their hearts could be imagined. We have to stop him. As long as Lord Demon God descends, he will definitely die. One of the demon clans roared, and took the lead to rush towards Tang Zheng. Chapter 278. Facing the demon clan that was rushing over, Tang Zheng slashed out with his sword. Shwa! The black sword light flashed, and the weapon in the opponent's hand was cut in 2. The sword edge brushed past the tip of the opponent's nose, leaving behind a trail of blood. The demon clan screamed in fright and hurriedly retreated, but Tang Zheng was like a shadow. The War Soul sword pierced forward, Poochie, it pierced through his body. The demon clan looked at his chest in disbelief, but did not have the slightest strength to resist. The other 3 were shocked. This intruder was actually so powerful, completely beyond their imagination. The 3 of them looked at each other and attacked together. Tang Zheng suddenly spun, and sword images appeared in all directions. Pu. The 3 of them were hit by the sword and fell to the ground dead. Tang Zheng did not even pant. These people's cultivation was too low, and was not on the same level as him. Without enemies, it was time to destroy the sacrifice. Looking at the blood vortex above his head, Tang Zheng was in a dilemma. What should he do now? If Tian Chanzi was here, maybe he would have a way to destroy the sacrifice. The blood vortex grew bigger and bigger, almost covering the entire mountain top. A strong wind blew, and sand and stones flew. An angry roar came from the vortex, which was even louder than before, as if it was exploding in his ears. 9. I can't wait any longer. Tang Zheng could not find a way, so he could only rush into the sky, hold the sword with both hands, and slash at the vortex. Clang! A powerful shockwave suddenly erupted, and Tang Zheng was sent flying as if he had eaten a heavy hammer. He coughed and almost vomited blood. This vortex was too strange. He could not hurt the other party in the slightest under his attack. However, the whirlpool immediately changed. It shook violently and spun even faster. The hundreds of corpses on the ground rose into the air and were sucked into the whirlpool. Suddenly, there was a burst of bloody light. The mysterious thing seemed to want to rush out. Who ruined my plans? A heaven-shaking roar sounded, and the old man returned, his eyes red with anger. Tang Zheng quickly hid behind a big tree and quietly observed the old man. The old man obviously did not see Tang Zheng, but when he saw that the men he had left behind had disappeared without a trace, and there were traces of fighting on the ground, he knew that someone must have been here. Who is it? Come out. You dared to create a diversion and barge in, ruining my plans. Obviously, he had confused Tang Zheng with the group of people at the entrance of the valley. Tang Zheng raised his head and looked at the vortex. Just as he was about to rush out and confront the old man, he saw a rocket coming from afar, heading straight for the old man. The old man flew into a rage. He leaped and dodged the rocket attack. With a loud explosion, a heat wave surged into the sky. Hand over your life. With a furious roar, a vigorous figure shot over from afar like a bullet. Tang Zheng's pupils constricted. The person who came was actually Marshall. How did she find him? However, he did not know that after Wu left the hospital, he did not give up. Instead, he immediately searched for new clues and finally captured the leader of another terrorist organization. This leader was the person who had launched the first round of terrorist attacks. When he returned to the small courtyard, he was captured alive by the military personnel, who had been waiting there for a long time. Wu personally interrogated him, pried open his mouth, and found out about this base camp. However, she did not know that the demon clan was involved in this matter. Of course, she was not idle either. Without stopping, she mobilized her subordinates to cross the border and attack. Originally, the military rarely took action across borders, as it was very easy to cause disputes with neighboring countries. However, Wu clearly did not have too many concerns in this regard. He only allowed this group of people to take off their military uniforms, and then carried a large number of weapons on a long journey. They drove directly across the border, and took the main road. They were only slightly slower than Tang Zheng. They also encountered the array in front of the valley. After all, Wu was an expert who had studied cultivators. When he saw this array, he knew that the terrorist organization was definitely related to cultivators. Immediately, she was extremely excited. The duty of the martial sect was to hunt and kill cultivators. Since there were cultivators here, she had to break through. She simply ordered her men to use the rockets and grenades they carried with them to bombard the array. After a while, the array was completely destroyed. She swaggered into the valley with her men. However, the moment they entered the valley, they were ambushed. A few demon clan experts rushed forward like a swarm of bees. In an instant, a few people from Wu Yi's side fell. However, Wu did not retreat. Instead, he charged forward and killed 2 demon clanests in an instant. This made her blood boil even more. In her opinion, the lives of ordinary people were insignificant compared to the lives of cultivators. Thus, she did not care about the lives of her subordinates and charged forward. In the end, she fought with the old man. Just at this time, Tang Zheng's sword slashed onto the whirlpool, causing it to shake. The old man knew that there was a problem behind him, so he did not care about fighting with Wu Yi and quickly retreated. Without the old man, the other cultivators were not a match for Wu Yi. She quickly and cleanly reaped the lives of the others. At this moment, she had also paid the price of the lives of 5 people. However, fortunately, Takashi and Sinosaurus were at the back of the group and were not injured. However, this scene gave them a vivid lesson, and many of them had already bent down and vomited. Sinosaurus and the rest had witnessed the battle between Tang Zheng and the terrorists yesterday, so their nerves were slightly stronger, and they did not vomit. However, their legs were trembling and their bodies were weak. Their legs were not listening to them anymore. Only Takashi's expression remained the same. Seeing that Wu Yi had brought a large number of soldiers and rushed in, he did not hesitate and quickly followed. He had already discovered that there were cultivators here. He was not afraid, but instead excited. In the past, he and the Heavenly Mystery Taoist had tried their best to find traces of cultivators, but they had only reaped a few rewards. This time he actually found traces of cultivators, and not just one or two but a large group. How could he not be excited? The auras of these people are very compatible with my cultivation technique. They must be from the demon clan. With so many cultivators, there must be a higher level cultivation technique. One that is even more powerful than the one I am currently cultivating. If I can obtain these cultivation techniques, my power will definitely increase greatly, and that brat Tangzheng will no longer be my match. Takashi was eager to give it a try. With a tap of his foot, he chased after them like an arrow. When the others saw Takashi rushing in, Ding Xiaowang clenched his teeth and chased after him. The members of 502 looked at each other and asked in bewilderment, "What should we do?" "Follow him in. Now that OL3 is not here, we can't give all the benefits to Takashi. We have to fight as well. Even without OL3, we have to work hard," Sinosaurus said sonorously. The other two nodded in agreement without any hesitation, and then chased after him. "Wait a moment, let's go together." Guosu and Wang Tong also mustered up their courage and said, "Then the five of us will definitely gather together and take care of each other," Wang Shiji said in a deep voice. The five of them formed a small team, holding guns in their hands, and quickly advanced. The others obviously did not have the courage to do so, and all of them stayed at the entrance of the valley, not daring to advance any further. The moment Tangzheng saw Marshall, he knew that this matter was getting more and more complicated. Since Marshall had appeared, he had to hide his identity. With a swipe of his palm across his face, his appearance completely changed. This was a type of illusion technique. Appearance-changing technique. It was not considered complicated, and Tangzheng could already be considered to be proficient in using it now. As long as he had the appearance-changing technique, he did not have to worry about being seen through by Marshall. However, he was not in a hurry to show himself, and continued to hide behind the tree, watching the battle between Marshall and the old man. This old man's cultivation was extremely impressive. He was actually on par with Marshall, and even had the upper hand. He was at least a cultivator in the fasting period. After all, Marshall was a first-grade pre-celestial stage martial artist. Tangzheng could not help but feel a lingering fear. Fortunately, he did not act rashly just now. Otherwise, in front of a cultivator in the fasting period, he, a fourth-grade foundation establishment stage cultivator, would definitely not be able to gain any benefits. It was no wonder that the terrorist organizations were so rampant. With such an expert supporting them, they could indeed run amok to a certain extent. In addition, as long as this so-called Lord Demon God descended into the world, their strength would definitely increase by several times. In the future, their terrorist activities would become even more rampant. The blood-red vortex above his head was still churning. Marshall had already noticed this strange scene, and turned pale with fright. He asked loudly, "What exactly is this? Lord Demon God is about to descend into the world. None of you should even think about living, haha." Although the old man's subordinates had all died, he could clearly block Marshall's attack, so he was not very worried. As long as he could stall for time, victory would belong to him. Marshall exclaimed, "Are you summoning people from the sky beyond heaven?" The old man snorted disdainfully. "Yes, the experts of the sky beyond heaven have left this world for too long. It's time for them to return. Don't even think about succeeding. I will definitely not allow people from the sky beyond heaven to come to this world." Marshall's face was ashen, his eyes were resolute, but there was a trace of fear and anger between his brows. Tangzheng just happened to notice this point. Back then, when Marshall faced the Ghost General, she did not have such a reaction, but now that she heard the old man mention the sky beyond heaven, it seemed to make her rather fearful and angry. What was the sky beyond heaven? Tangzheng was confused. This was the first time he had heard of this term, and immediately he rejoiced. If he did not rush here in time, he would not have been able to see this big show. and would not have been able to hear such a secret. Suddenly his gaze turned cold, and he exclaimed in his heart, "Crap, why did Sinosaurus and the others come as well? Damn it. Marshall actually brought them to the base camp of the terrorists. Isn't that equivalent to sending sheep into a tiger's den and putting them in danger?" Sinosaurus and the others had just rushed over when they were attracted by the scene in the sky. They were indescribably shocked. The gigantic blood-red vortex dyed the sky red. It was shocking, it was completely beyond their imagination. Before they could digest this scene, a roar sounded out from the vortex, and a gigantic shadow gradually revealed itself. Chapter 279. A shadow appeared from the whirlpool. It was a huge figure, as if it had a pair of wings that covered the sky and covered the sun. Please add, haha, I've left this world for so many years. Now it's finally time for me to return. I want this world to suffer my wrath and tremble under my feet. An angry and ferocious voice came from the shadows. So. A few flames fell from the sky, and this part of the forest was immediately set ablaze, turning into a vast sea of fire. Everyone was dumbstruck by this scene. Even Wu's eyes widened. She knew about the sky beyond heaven, but she never thought that the person who summoned the sky beyond heaven would become like this. In the blink of an eye, this lush green mountain forest turned into purgatory. The old man knocked Wu back with a single move, then flew onto the altar, knelt down, and excitedly said respectfully, "Welcome Lord Demon God to the world. Very good. The seeds left behind by my demon race have finally sprouted. Back then, we purposely left behind so many cultivation techniques and clues, so that the fated person could one day cultivate my demon race's cultivation techniques, and summon the demon race back. This day has finally arrived, haha." The demon god laughed out loud, his aura terrifying. Even though Tang Zheng was hiding behind a big tree and restraining his aura, he was still shocked by this scene. This demon god came from the sky beyond heaven, and his might was so strong. That aura of looking down on the world was something that Tang Zheng had never seen before. What kind of place was the sky beyond heaven? There was actually such a powerful existence. More importantly, the information revealed by the demon god was that the demon race was expelled from this world back then, and they purposely left behind some cultivation techniques and clues, so that their descendants could cultivate these techniques and then summon them back. Good intentions. Then who was it that expelled them from this world back then? Who was so strong that they could expel such a powerful existence? A series of questions poured into his mind like an avalanche, causing him to be a little confused. Despicable cultivator. You were expelled back then, but now, you still can't act like a tyrant in this world. Wu roared angrily. The demon god disdainfully said, "An ant like you dares to speak to me like that? You're courting death." As soon as she finished speaking, a ball of flames descended from the sky towards Marshall. Marshall anxiously dodged, but the place she was originally standing on had already turned into a huge pit, and the soil had become charred black. The might of the demon god was extraordinary. The other soldiers, Sinosaurus and the rest were all trembling in fear. Only Takashi's eyes lit up, like a wolf staring at its prey. Demon god, this is one of the legendary leaders of the legends. The demon god, the demon race, the day when I surpass Tang Zheng is just around the corner. Takashi suppressed the throbbing in his heart with great difficulty, and did not rush up to kneel down to the demon god. As for Marshall, he was finally curious, who was she? It seemed like she had an irreconcilable enmity with the demon clan, and she even knew so much about cultivators. No, I'll wait and see. What if I were to be exposed and attract the attack of Instructor Wu? Takashi had experienced Waterloo at the hands of Tang Zheng, and now he was extremely cautious. Tang Zheng looked at the increasing number of demon gods that were appearing from the whirlpool in the air, and his mind raced. Now was the last chance to stop him. Alright, so be it. This demon god is too powerful. As long as he comes to this world, he will definitely make the demon clan grow stronger. For ordinary people, it will definitely be a disaster. Tang Zheng clenched his teeth and took out the War Soul Sword. War Soul Sword, this time it's up to you. Tang Zheng gently stroked the sword as he said in his heart. The black light on the War Soul sword flickered, as if it was responding to him. Tang Zheng immediately calmed down and stared at the demon god without blinking. Go. Tang Zheng bellowed and used the Imperial Sword technique. The War Soul sword quietly pierced through the air, transforming into a black bolt of lightning that pierced towards the demon god. Puff! A bloody light soared into the sky as the demon god roared. Who is it? Who dares to hurt me? Whiz! The demon god's huge figure struggled free from the whirlpool and descended from the sky, landing on the altar. Then the figure quickly shrank and turned into a person. He was wearing a scarlet cloak, and his entire body was enveloped in the cloak. It was impossible to see his appearance clearly. However, the anger in his voice was enough to make everyone tremble in fear. He suddenly looked in the direction of Tang Zheng. His gaze was like lightning, and with a wave of his hand, a black light flashed. Bang! The tree in front of Tang Zheng broke in half, and Tang Zheng grabbed the black light. It was the War Soul sword. It was very difficult for the War Soul sword to unleash its power in the hands of others, because they were not the owner of the War Soul sword. However, in the hands of this demon god, its power was still extraordinary. Tang Zheng's hand that was holding onto the sword hilt started to tremble, and a terrifying force spread out from his meridians to his entire body. He hurriedly channeled his innate chi to counteract this force, and his entire body actually felt weak. This was only a simple attack from the opponent, yet it was already so powerful. If the opponent were to attack with all his might, what kind of scene would that be? Tang Zheng did not dare imagine, because he knew that it meant that he would definitely die. Furthermore, what made him even more shocked was that the War Soul sword's light had dimmed, and it was obvious that it was damaged. The only thing that made him feel gratified was that there was blood on the War Soul sword, which was obviously the blood of the demon god. In other words, the sudden attack just now had indeed injured the opponent, but Tang Zheng was not sure how injured the opponent was. Tang Zheng hurriedly kept the War Soul sword back into the sumeru bag. Since the War Soul sword was damaged, he could not use it for the time being. From Tang Zheng's attack, to the demon god's descent, and then to the demon god's counterattack, all of this happened too quickly. The others did not even see what was going on. They did not even see the appearance of the War Soul sword clearly. They only saw the trajectory of the black light that flashed across the sky. The tree was cut down, and Tang Zheng's figure was exposed. Everyone looked at him at the same time, and no one else noticed that there was actually someone hiding here. So you're here. The old man suddenly stood up and glared at Tang Zheng. Without a doubt, this was the person who started the trouble. You are a cultivator, yet you help these people and prevent the demon god from descending into the world. What are your intentions? The old man questioned loudly. Tang Zheng simply walked out with large strides and said, "The demon god has descended into the world, and the people are in a terrible situation. Why would I let such a great demon come to this world and poison the people?" Tang Zheng's voice had also changed, and outsiders could not tell that it was him at all. But you are a cultivator, yet you are colluding with this group of people. They are our enemies, and we are our allies. The old man said indignantly. Tang Zheng curled his lips and said, "Don't flatter yourself, I am a cultivator, but you are a demon. Cultivators are actually like warriors. There are good people and bad people among them, and the demon is a bad person among the cultivators. I am at odds with the demon, so how can I be your ally?" As he spoke, he gave Wu a meaningful look. Wu Ji stared straight at him, and was slightly startled. These words were deafening, causing a storm to rise in her heart. If someone had said these words to her in the past, she would definitely scoff and not believe them at all. But this time, when Tang Zheng said these words, she was not in a hurry to deny them. Instead, she fell into deep thought. Because this was what Tang Zheng was doing right now. She had no choice but to believe him. Were there really good people among the cultivators? It seemed that cultivators were also humans. Naturally, there should be good people and bad people, not much different from warriors. But didn't the sect master say that cultivators were a bunch of crazy freaks? Everyone had the right to kill him. Her eyes were fixed on Tang Zheng, as if she wanted to get more information from this ordinary and unfamiliar face. However, she discovered that all of this was futile. Could it be that the sect master is really wrong? A thought suddenly popped up in her mind, and she was instantly frightened by it. No, the sect master is definitely not wrong. She retracted her expression, and her eyes became cold again. She thought to herself, no matter who this cultivator is, since he is preventing the demon god from descending, then let them fight amongst themselves first. The martial sect is too far away from here. If Lord Sectmaster can come here, then this demon god is nothing to be afraid of. The old man was rendered speechless by Tang Zheng's rebuttal, his face flushed red. The demon god disdainfully said in a cold voice, "Ignorant brat, pretending to be righteous in front of me, then I will immediately send you to hell." Among the cultivators, there are many of you who are soft-hearted, which led to the current situation. The demon god's figure flashed and pounced towards Tang Zheng. His huge cloak unfolded, and a whirlwind soared into the sky in front of him, directly engulfing Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng did not even have the chance to resist. Tang Zheng was overwhelmed with shock. Just what cultivation level did this demon god have to be so powerful? Damn it! Tang Zheng cursed. His body was already floating in the air, floating in the blood-red tornado, and this tornado was like a sharp blade that cut through his clothes, and then slowly cut his skin and muscles. Blood flew everywhere. Tang Zheng cried out in pain. This was equivalent to the feeling of 10,000 arrows piercing through his heart. His veins were exposed, his eyes wide open, staring at the demon god. The demon god looked at him in ridicule and said, "You don't know what's good for you. I'll take care of them first, then I'll slowly take care of you." An anomaly among cultivators. The demon god walked towards Marshall step by step. Marshall's expression did not change, he did not move, but the soldiers behind him seemed to have met their nemesis, and subconsciously retreated. There was no other way. The demon god's momentum was too strong, ordinary people would not be able to withstand it. The old man excitedly followed beside the demon god and said respectfully, "Lord Demon God, let me take care of such a small fry for you." The demon god nodded and said, "All right, leave one alive for me. The blood of a pre-celestial martial artist is just right for me to use as a sacrifice for my cultivation." He was actually using other people's lives to cultivate. As expected of the demon clan, his cultivation technique was too vicious. Marshall coldly snorted and said, "I will only die in battle. I will not surrender. Come, I will definitely not do as you wish." With that, she took a step forward and raised one hand like a blade. Roaring Flame Saber. This was her signature move. A wave of heat emanated from her palm, as if it was a flaming blade. Chapter 280. With the demonic god's command, the old man seemed to have the help of God. His fighting spirit was overflowing. He stretched out his long hand, and his bones and tendons sounded together. Like a withered tree in spring, his thin body swelled up in an instant. Even the wrinkles on his face were reduced by a lot. His body became taller in an instant, and his eyes were overflowing with cold light. Wu took a deep breath and took the initiative to strike first. The roaring flame saber slashed forward. Whiz! An invisible gust of wind tore through the air and struck towards the old man. The old man did not dodge. He drew a circle in front of him with one hand, and a black chi surged out, blocking the gust of wind. At this moment, Marshall had already arrived in front of the old man. The roaring flame saber slashed towards his neck. The old man snorted and the black gas quickly condensed into a shield. Clang! The roaring flame saber struck the shield and did not move at all. However, Marshall was forced back a step. Without a doubt, the difference in strength between the two of them was obvious. The old man's cultivation was clearly higher than hers. However, Marshall did not give up. She was not someone who would give up. 3 consecutive slashes, but they were all blocked by the black shield. A cold light flashed in the old man's eyes as he said, "Lord Demon God wants you to be a sacrifice. That is your honor, you reckless thing." Suddenly, the shield turned into a wisp of black smoke, and then turned into a rope. Like a poisonous snake, it quickly swam towards Wu. Marshall kept waving the roaring flame saber, but the rope was extremely tricky, not allowing the roaring flame saber to touch it. The moment it touched Marshall's body, it quickly spiraled upwards, wanting to bind her. In the blink of an eye, the outcome was decided. It was obvious that the old man did not use his full strength earlier, because he had been waiting for the demon god to descend. He was afraid that if he used his full strength, he would lose too much energy. Now that the demon god had descended, he no longer had any worries. Moreover, this was the first time he had performed in front of the demon god, so he naturally had to do his best and take down the other party as quickly as possible. Marshall looked at the rope and was shocked. He quickly asked, "What magic treasure is this?" "Dragon-trapped rope," the old man said proudly. "I'm using the dragon-trapping lasso to deal with you. It's your honor." The dragon-trapping rope was made of special materials. It was an earth-level magic treasure, and it was an offensive magic treasure. From its name, one could imagine one or two things. It could even trap a dragon, so how easy would it be to deal with a human? Shameless boasting. Marshall was not frightened. With a flip of his hand, he slashed towards his own body. His palm had already turned fiery red, and the heat was rippling like a soldering iron. If this blade fell, she would definitely hurt herself, but she didn't hesitate in the slightest. It could be seen how firm and resolute her nature was. Wu was originally a cold person. Not only was she cold to others, she was even colder to herself. Otherwise, she would not have such a cultivation at such a young age. This was not only because she was talented, but also because she was hardworking. Since she was young, she had forced herself to practice martial arts. This was the only thing she usually did. She had no other entertainment or hobbies. Her life was just like her name. There was only one thing left: martial arts. Bang! The fiery red roaring flame saber slashed down on the dragon-trapping rope, causing it to immediately emit black smoke. With a whoosh, it slipped off her body. The old man did not expect her to be so difficult to deal with. After seeing her for so long, he still had not captured her. Wouldn't that mean that he would lose face in front of the demon god? An ominous glint flashed in his eyes as he once again pounced forward. The dragon-trapping rope once again appeared in front of her like a ghost. Just now, the blade had already left a long gash on her body. The clothes around her waist were already dyed red with blood, but he didn't even look at it. He was still expressionless, as if nothing had happened. However, the others were not as calm as him. The soldiers were originally stunned, but now that they had finally regained their senses, they realized that their leader was in danger, and the soldiers finally took action. Although what they had seen and heard today was completely beyond their imagination, causing them to feel a kind of fear from the bottom of their hearts. After all, they had trained for many years and suppressed the fear in their hearts. They all pointed their guns at the demon god. Obviously, he was the biggest threat here. Bang! 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 The sound of gunshots rang out like raindrops hitting banana leaves. A dense barrage of bullets poured out, and there were even 3 rocket projectiles that were fired at the demon god. The demon god was still shrouded in that scarlet cloak, and his expression could not be seen clearly. However, he did not sit idly by. Instead, he waved his cloak fiercely. Whoosh! A strong wind blew, forming a wind wall. All the bullets were blocked by the wind wall, and the 3 rocket projectiles exploded with a loud bang, causing a terrifying shockwave to spread out. A bunch of ants. Death is not to be regretted. The demon god lightly spat out a few words, and the wind wall turned into a gust of wind that carried countless bullets back. When the soldiers saw this, they wanted to escape, but it was too late. They only had time to let out a series of screams before collapsing to the ground. In the end, only a few student soldiers were left standing. Just now they were extremely shocked. There were no soldiers who had the courage to shoot like that. Furthermore, they were the last to arrive here and were standing at the back, so they were lucky to survive. A few of them wanted to escape, but they found that their legs were uncontrollably stiff. They did not even have the strength to pull the trigger. They could only stare blankly at this scene. The demon god was like the god of death. They could not even muster the slightest thought of resisting. They did not even have the thought of regretting it. Their minds were blank. Of course, there was one exception, and that was Takashi. Although he pretended to be as frightened and lifeless as the others, His eyes swept across the battlefield one by one, and finally locked onto Tang Zheng, who was in midair. He could not see through this cultivator who had suddenly appeared. He was also very curious about who the other party was that dared to ruin the demon race's plans. Listening to his impassioned speech just now, Takashi did not think much of it. This was a society where the strong preyed on the weak. If the demon race was strong, then he, Takashi, would have a better life in the future, and his strength would also be stronger. As for the life and death of the others, he did not care at all. The life and death of the people present had nothing to do with him. He was more concerned about the demon god. As long as the dust of the battle settled, he would impatiently reveal his identity. He was also a member of the demon race, and in the future he would be able to charge and break through the enemy lines under Lord Demon God. It would be best if he could rule this world and kill all those who did not listen. Madness had already emerged in his eyes. Imagining his glorious days in the future, he could not help but become excited. However, Marshall was not excited at all, because she was gradually falling into a disadvantageous position in the battle with the old man. Suddenly, the old man struck out with his palm. She hurriedly waved her roaring flame blade to block, but she did not know that this was a feint from the old man. The dragon-trapped rope had actually quietly circled behind her and wrapped around her arms. With her arms bound, she had no way to resist. She could only watch as she was tied up like a big dumpling by the dragon-trapped rope, unable to move at all. The old man's eyes finally revealed a look of relief. After spending a lot of effort, he had finally subdued this woman. He did not know who taught her martial arts, but she was already so powerful at such a young age. She was truly difficult to deal with. The old man turned to look at the demon god and said respectfully, "Lord Demon God, your sacrifice has been captured." The demon god nodded his head and said, "Although it's a bit slow, it's still okay. But you have to remember, I don't like waiting. This time is already long enough. Next time be more efficient." The old man hurriedly nodded his head like he was pounding garlic. He said while trembling with fear, "Yes, I will follow Lord Demon God's orders. There are still a few ants over there. Let's get rid of them together." The demon god pointed at Takashi and the others. Suddenly, his heart trembled as he looked at Takashi with a gaze like lightning. He laughed strangely and said, Interesting. You hit it well." After all, Takashi's method of hiding his cultivation was a method of the demon race. How could it escape the eyes of the demon god? Previously, the demon god had ignored Takashi, but this time, he found clues when he looked closely. Takashi was swept by the demon god's gaze. It was as if he had fallen into an ice cave in the dead of winter. His whole body suddenly trembled. Hearing the demon god's words, he knew that he had been seen through, so he simply stopped hiding. Moreover, the old man was obviously going to get rid of them, so he really could not hide anymore. Just as he was about to open his mouth and say that he was also a demon, he heard an angry roar explode in midair. Tang Zheng followed this knife-like bloody tornado and drifted endlessly. His head was dizzy, and his eyes were blurred. His body had been cut countless times, and his clothes were ragged, making him look like a beggar. But now he was in a worse state than a beggar. At least the beggar's life was not in danger, but his was now in danger. He wanted to resist and use all the innate chi in his body to stabilize himself, but he found that it was useless. The power of this tornado was not something he could resist at all. Actually, thinking about it, he was only at the 4th stage of the foundation establishment stage. And this demon god's cultivation was unfathomable. Although the War Soul Sword had injured him, Tang Zheng did not know how serious his injuries were. Therefore, no matter what, Tang Zheng's situation was extremely disadvantageous. Seeing that the battle on the ground had already ended, all the soldiers had died, Marshall had been captured, and the old man was about to deal with Sinosaurus and the others. These people were his classmates, his teammates. How could he just watch as they were killed? Thus, he let out an unwilling roar, just in time to interrupt Takashi's actions, causing him to stop just as he was about to kneel down and pay his respects to the demon god. Then, everyone's gaze was attracted to Tang Zheng. They only heard a loud roar. "You are not allowed to hurt them." Marshall looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated expression. This cultivator was really strange. He could not even protect himself, yet he still wanted to protect others. This was completely different from the cultivators that the sect master had described. Sinosaurus and the rest looked at Tangzheng, thinking, "Bro, you can't even protect yourself, and you still want to save us. Thank you very much." It seems that this time there is no escape. If we are lucky enough to meet again in our next life, thank you for your good intentions. The demon god raised his head and looked at Tangzheng, and said indifferently, "These ants have been dealt with, now it's your turn." Chapter 281. Seeing the demon god looking at him, Tangzheng's heart felt as if it was about to stop beating, as if he was about to suffocate. Sogu 360 Soso search, download novels for free. What should I do? The War Soul Sword is damaged and is unable to attack. How can I attack the demon god from such a long distance? Suddenly he had a flash of inspiration. With a thought, a gigantic bow appeared in his hand. Heaven-shocking bow. But he immediately realized another problem. There was only a bow, no arrows and no way to attack. Tangzheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had actually forgotten the most important point. However, when he held the heaven-shocking bow in his hands, his floating body suddenly stabilized, as if a 1,000-gene boulder was tied to his body, and the strong wind could no longer shake him in the slightest. He was overjoyed. If he had known that the heaven-shocking bow had such a miraculous effect, he wouldn't have had to work so hard just now. His hand subconsciously pulled on the bowstring, and a mysterious power spread out. He turned pale with fright and opened his eyes wide. Why is this bow so mysterious? It doesn't have any arrows, but it seems to have some power. When the others saw him take out a bow and pull the bowstring with his bare hands, as if he was about to shoot an arrow, they couldn't help but be surprised. The old man from the demon clan laughed out loud in disdain. "You overestimate yourself. It seems that you have been scared out of your wits by the Lord Demon God." Gao Daji had a look of disdain on his face. This cultivator was just SOSO, and he was also a fool. He had thought too much of him before. The demon god stared straight at Tangzheng, stared at the bow in his hand, and thought in surprise, what is the background of this bow, to actually be able to stabilize his body? However, an ant is an ant after all. Don't even think about raising a huge wave. The demon god's hand reached out from his cloak and aimed at Tangzheng. Just as he was about to attack, Tangzheng released the bowstring. Buzz. A deafening sound resounded throughout the world, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. But an even more shocking scene appeared. The tornado around Tangzheng instantly collapsed, and an invisible force broke through the air, heading straight for the demon god. A blood-red light lit up in the demon god's hand, instantly enveloping him, forming a screen of light. Kacha. When the heaven-shocking bow's attack struck the light screen instantly collapsed and turned into pieces. The demon god turned pale with fright. What kind of bow is that? The others also had the same question. What kind of divine bow was this? It could have such power without using arrows. Tangzheng landed lightly on the ground, and also looked at the divine might of the heaven-shocking bow in shock. Not only did this arrow break the tornado, it also broke the opponent's defense. He looked at the divine bow in his hand with indescribable surprise, and suddenly realized that no wonder Li Xiaotian did not hesitate to risk his life to obtain this divine bow from the prehistoric heavenly tomb. Its power was simply too great. With the divine bow in hand, Tangzheng couldn't help but feel extremely confident. He didn't give his opponent a chance to be shocked, and he once more pulled the bowstring. This time, the bowstring was drawn into a full moon shape. Tangzheng felt that he could not hold on any longer. Pulling this heaven-shocking bow was extremely strenuous. Wang. Tangzheng released his finger once again, and this time, the wind and clouds in the sky changed color. A gust of wind erupted from the bowstring, like an angry dragon roaring as it rushed towards the demon god. The demon god turned pale with fright, his cloak expanded, and a bloody light soared into the sky, covering the sun. Bang! With a loud sound, the heaven and earth trembled. The flames that were originally burning in the valley were instantly extinguished by the gust of wind. Sand and rocks flew everywhere, and the world dimmed. The scarlet cloak trembled violently, and then a miserable scream rang out. "I am not willing, brat. I will definitely come back to find you." Boom! With an explosive sound, the scarlet cloak disintegrated, and a bloody light soared into the sky, as if it had turned into a rain of blood, flying in all directions. This scene was unbelievable. No one would have thought that such a powerful demon god would actually be killed by Tang Zheng's arrow. Everyone looked at Tang Zheng at the same time, and Tang Zheng also looked at the heaven-shocking bow in his hands in disbelief. Was this a dream? Obviously not. However, Tang Zheng was not as optimistic as these people. He looked at the bloody light that filled the sky and frowned. The demon god was not dead. Tang Zheng sensed that a strand of divine soul had escaped. The demon god was only heavily injured, but he still stayed in this world. In other words, the demon clan's living sacrifice had successfully summoned the demon god to this world. Actually, outsiders did not know the exact situation of the demon god. Although he had performed extremely well just now, and every move he made was filled with boundless power. However, only he himself knew that after being summoned to this world through the sacrifice of the living, his own strength had already been consumed by more than 70 to 80%. And Tang Zheng had also given him a sword strike at the critical moment. This sword strike was when he was at his weakest when he arrived in this world. And the injury was extremely serious, but he had temporarily concealed it. Now that the heaven-shocking bow had shot him 2 more arrows, he finally could not hold on any longer. His body exploded, and his soul escaped. Therefore, the demon god was just a guy who looked strong on the outside but was actually weak on the inside. Tang Zheng had given him a fatal blow when he was at his weakest. However, the others did not know about this. They all looked at the heaven-shocking bow in Tang Zheng's hands in shock, and even Wu was no exception. What kind of divine weapon was this? It actually had such divine might. Bloodlight sprinkled down from the sky and landed on everyone's bodies. No one noticed that many of the bloodlight had seeped into their skin, especially Do Long and the others, as a strange energy started to swim within their bodies. Takashi was originally prepared to hug the demon god's thigh. If not for Tang Zheng's roar just now, he would have already revealed his identity and would have died without a doubt. He was filled with lingering fear. His face gradually turned pale, and his heart was filled with sorrow. He saw that he had missed such a great opportunity, and it was all because of this mysterious cultivator that he had ruined his plans. He wanted nothing more than to kill this guy, but he did not dare to act rashly. This person was obviously not someone he could contend against, so he could only continue to stand there in fear and unease, like a puppet. The old man from the demon clan was like a deflated balloon, quickly shriveling up. His eyes that were overflowing with a cold light actually dimmed. Of course, he had also discovered the demon god's escaping soul. He looked in the direction the demon god was escaping in and muttered to himself. How could Lord Demon God fail? How could he fail? This was like a person who had worked hard for a goal his entire life. Just as he was about to succeed, in the end, all his efforts were for naught. This kind of psychological blow was incomparable. Tang Zheng stared at the old man, his face revealing killing intent. Although the demon god had escaped, he definitely could not let the leader of the demon clan escape, or else there would be endless trouble in the future. Whiz! Tang Zheng appeared in front of the old man in a flash. The old man was so scared by Tang Zheng's indomitable aura that he retreated a few steps back. His expression changed, and he actually did not dare to resist. It was really because the 2 arrows from Tang Zheng had given him too much psychological pressure. Tang Zheng was secretly delighted. If you don't resist, then I'll just take advantage of your weakness and take your life. Pulling the bowstring, a powerful aura immediately enveloped the opponent, causing him to have the thought of being powerless to escape. Actually, this was all his misconception. Although the heaven-shocking bow's power was extraordinary, Tang Zheng was only at the 4th stage of the foundation establishment stage after all, and was far from his fasting period. If he were to counterattack, he might be able to win. Furthermore, Tang Zheng had just shot 2 arrows, and had already used up 60 to 70% of his strength, so his attack power was greatly reduced. However, the old man was not clear about this. When he saw the heaven-shocking bow, he was scared out of his wits. He retreated again, and actually retreated to the front of Takashi. Wang. The bowstring vibrated, and Tang Jung shot out another arrow, but the power of this arrow was incomparable to the previous one. However, the old man clearly did not notice this, and with a loud shout he hurriedly blocked it. However, the dragon-trapped rope was not by his side, and he did not have any other magic treasure to block it. He could only circulate his energy and use his palms to block it. Puff. This invisible attack hit his chest. He looked at his chest in disbelief, but discovered that it was not fatal. He was surprised. You. Just as he was about to say that your attack was only SOSO, a burst of gunshots interrupted his words. Scalding hot bullets shot into his back and out of his chest, leaving behind huge holes. Puff. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and turned his head to look, only to discover that Takashi was standing behind him, and the semi-automatic rifle in his hand was continuously spitting out flames, as dozens of bullets were fed to him. Although the old man was a cultivator, he was still made of flesh and blood. These bullets had already completely taken away his life force, and were even more fatal than Tang Zheng's arrow. No one expected Takashi to suddenly shoot. In fact, Takashi was also very unwilling to shoot, as he really hoped that the demon clan would win. However, everything in front of him told him that the demon clan had failed. If he did not take action, then he would have no profit at all on this trip, so he had to stand out among these people, so he did not hesitate to pull the trigger. Although the old man was also a demon, he was simply an ant to him. How could he not step on his shoulder to get to the top? He deliberately showed a look of fear, and when he saw the old man turn his head to look at him, he seemed to be frightened. He threw away the rifle, hugged the old man's body with both hands, and the two of them rolled on the ground together. At the same time, Takashi's hands were not idle. They quickly searched the old man's body, and the two of them rolled on the ground very well concealed his real behavior. Not long after, he touched a small jade tablet, and his heart was overjoyed. Cultivators would only use jade tablets to record cultivation techniques, and they would usually use jade tablets to record high-level cultivation techniques. Didn't that mean that he had obtained a high-level cultivation technique? In the past, Daoist Tianji had cultivated for most of his life before he was only able to reach the first grade of the foundation establishment stage, because he did not have a high-level cultivation method. As his disciple, Gao Daji was very clear on this point, so he had always longed for a high-level cultivation method. But this time, by a stroke of luck, he simply wanted to jump up in excitement. He hurriedly put away the jade tablet, and after confirming that the other party did not have anything useful on him, he stopped rolling. Then, he firmly pressed the other party under his body, as if he was going to fight to the death. However, his eyes glanced at the dragon-trapped rope that tied Wu up like a dumpling. Chapter 282. Of course, Tang Zheng had to keep an eye on the dragon-trapped rope. Even a pre-celestial expert like Wu was bound by the dragon-trapped rope. How could Tang Zheng let him slip away for nothing? Please add moreover, the old man from the demon clan was already dead, so the dragon-trapped rope was an ownerless item. He walked in front of Wu, his martial arts were restricted and he was unable to move. He stared straight at Tang Zheng. His shocking attack had set off a storm in her heart. Her gaze was also fixed on the heaven-shocking bow, guessing what kind of divine weapon it was. More importantly, how was the other party going to deal with her? After all, there was no one here who could fight against Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng stared straight at her. A strong pressure caused her to frown. Without a doubt, this was the best time to kill her, to prevent future troubles. As long as she died, the martial sect would not know that he was a cultivator for the time being. After all, Wu was a ticking time bomb, and if she recovered her memories one day, Tang Zheng would not have a good ending. Wu could feel a strong killing intent from his eyes. His heart trembled, and he asked softly, "You want to kill me?" Tang Zheng did not deny it, and said, "You also want to kill cultivators, so it doesn't seem wrong for me to kill you." I'm wrong for killing cultivators? Look at those cultivators just now. Do you think they don't deserve to die? Wu was not afraid, and instead asked in a loud and clear voice. Tang Zheng did not comment and said, "They do deserve to die, but are all martial artists good people? Do you dare to say that these people did not die because of you?" Tang Zheng pointed at the soldiers who had fallen to the ground. Wu said disapprovingly, "They died to protect this country. They died for a reason." Tang Zheng sneered in disdain. This explanation is impressive enough, but I don't like to hear the reason. Let me ask you directly, if I were to be captured in front of you, would you let me go?" Wu thought for a moment, then firmly shook his head. No. Although Tang Zheng's previous words had touched her, the values that had been deeply ingrained in her since she was young would not be so easily destroyed. She still felt that hunting cultivators was the best way to protect ordinary people. Tang Zheng grinned coldly. "If that's the case, then I have no reason to let you go." Tang Zheng grabbed Wu's neck without the slightest bit of mercy. Although Wu was beautiful and tall as Tang Zheng, what was the use of that? Tang Zheng was not a wastrel who could not walk when he saw a beauty. Moreover, he did not have any improper thoughts about martial arts. Compared to beauty, he cherished his life more. When the others saw that this cultivator actually wanted to kill Instructor Wu, they were extremely shocked. Wasn't everyone together just now? Why are they killing each other now? However, they were too far away, and the conversation between Tang Zheng and Marshall was not loud, so the others did not know what the two were talking about. They only knew that the atmosphere was tense again. Takashi did not stop him, because he could not figure out the cultivator's background. She did not beg for mercy, but only stared straight at Tang Zheng, as if she wanted to remember his appearance. Tang Zheng's ragged clothes were not much better than a beggar's, and he even revealed a lot of his white body. Marshall's gaze became blurry due to the lack of oxygen. In a trance, she saw a jade pendant hanging around Tang Zheng's neck, and her eyes couldn't help but widen. She opened her mouth and said with difficulty, Your jade pendant." "Jade pendant?" Tang Zheng's head moved. He immediately lowered his head to look, only to see that the jade pendant hanging around his neck had already been revealed due to his torn clothes, and the large martial character on the jade pendant was clearly visible. This jade pendant was given to him by Tang Dahai back then, saying that they were together when he first saw her, and it was related to the mystery of his birth. Tang Zheng usually wore it around his neck, and did not pay any attention to it. After all, he did not have much interest in his own background, and did not have any sense of closeness to his biological parents that he could not remember at all. But at this moment, Marshall looked at the jade pendant with an expression of disbelief. A person's expression when their life was hanging by a thread was the most realistic. Therefore, when he saw her reaction, Tang Zheng guessed that she recognized this jade pendant. Tang Zheng released his hand. Marshall took a deep breath and coughed a few times. However, his eyes were fixed on the jade pendant and said, "How did you get this jade pendant?" Tang Zheng coldly snorted and said, "You are in my hands, so I should be the one asking you. How do you recognize this jade pendant?" "Of course I recognize this jade pendant. This is an item of my martial sect." "You are a cultivator. How can you have an item of my martial sect?" Marshall asked suspiciously. "An item of the martial sect?" Tang Zheng was greatly surprised. How could the thing in his swaddling clothes be an item of the martial sect? This is too ridiculous. Marshall looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated gaze. Could it be that this person was related to the martial sect? "Where did you get this jade pendant?" Marshall asked. "Tell me the origin of this jade pendant first." Tang Zheng asked back. If you want to know the origin of the jade pendant, then tell me how you got it. What does it have to do with you?" Marshall did not retreat in the slightest and asked coldly. Tang Zheng grabbed her neck again and said, "Now that you are in my hands, you have to answer my question first, do you hear me? If you don't answer my question first, even if you kill me, don't even think about making me speak." Marshall was not afraid at all. "If I don't kill you, I have other ways to find out your secret." Tang Zheng would not show mercy to the fairer sex, and immediately prepared to use the soul-searching technique to find out the origin of the jade pendant. Although Tang Zheng usually did not care about the mystery of his birth, he had coincidentally found some clues this time, so of course he would not let it go. Tang Zheng reached out his hand to grab the top of her head. Marshall did not know what he was going to do, so he raised his neck and stared at her fearlessly. Whiz. Suddenly, a bullet shot towards Tang Zheng's head. Tang Zheng felt the danger and quickly dodged to the side, avoiding the bullet. Who is it? He suddenly looked in the direction of the bullet and saw a group of soldiers rushing over. The leader was actually Kai Guibin. In this surprise attack on the terrorist base, Wu's team was only the vanguard, and the main force was behind them. The two sides arrived one after the other, but they did not expect that the battle was already nearing its end. If not for the sacrifice, the 100 or so villagers would have been terrorists. Their explosive fighting strength would have been unparalleled, and it would not have been easy to eliminate them. However, no one would have expected that the demon clan would go crazy. In order to summon the demon god, they would not hesitate to sacrifice the followers that they had painstakingly recruited. When Tang Zheng saw the reinforcements, he knew that things were not going well. It was already too late for him to use the soul-searching technique, and it was not realistic for him to take Wu away from so many armed soldiers. If he delayed any longer, he would probably be surrounded by these soldiers. He had already consumed a lot of energy, so if he was surrounded, he would probably be captured alive. Therefore, in the blink of an eye, he had already considered the pros and cons of the situation. He extended his hand and grabbed onto the dragon-trapped rope, and with a fierce pull he released Wu. However, he did not forget to use the body lock technique, temporarily restricting her movements. Then he quickly retreated, and in the blink of an eye, disappeared into the forest. Kai Guibin looked at the mess, the scene that was like purgatory on earth, and could not help but feel a chill in his heart. Especially when he looked at the dead soldiers on the ground, his eyes turned red, and he was incomparably angry. Who did this? Who was that person just now? Quickly go and catch him. A small group of soldiers was about to chase in the direction of Tang Zheng, when Wu took a deep breath. His body released a series of crisp cracking sounds as he finally broke free from the body lock technique. He anxiously stopped them. Stop, don't chase. Kai Guibin glared at Wu. Although Wu was sent by the higher-ups, how could he remain indifferent when so many soldiers died under her leadership? Why not? You won't be able to catch up. Wu looked in the direction that Tang Zheng disappeared in, and said coldly without any trace of politeness. Kai Guibin said unhappily, "My soldiers' tracking abilities are counted on one hand. I don't believe that I can't catch up to a criminal." Under Kai Guibin's order, a small team quickly chased in the direction that Tang Zheng had disappeared in. Wu did not try to persuade him any further, and directly walked towards the corpse of the old man from Demon Clan. Takashi had already stood up, and seeing Wu walking over, he hurriedly said respectfully, "Instructor Wu." Wu looked at him with admiration and said, "Not bad." Takashi pretended to be afraid and laughed, then did not dare to look at her again, and immediately lowered his head. The scene of Wu and Demon Clan being at odds was still vivid in his mind, causing him to secretly figure out what kind of identity Wu had. If Marshall were to discover his identity as a demon, he would definitely die. Wu did not pay too much attention to Takashi. Instead, he squatted down to check on the old man. After confirming that he was dead, he stood up. Kai Guibin walked over in shock and asked, "Instructor Wu, what exactly is going on? Why did so many people die? What about the terrorists? Why did this forest look like it had been set on fire?" Wu Qingpiao glanced at him and said, "The terrorists have been completely annihilated. You don't need to know anything else." Kai Guibin was furious, as the person in charge of this matter. "You actually said that I don't need to know." How preposterous. His face darkened and said, "Instructor Wu, my soldiers are dead. Don't tell me I don't have the right to know. There are some things that you shouldn't know." Wu was not polite at all, and after saying that he walked out of the valley, leaving Kai Guibin behind in anger. However, he was not willing to give up, and immediately turned to Takashi and the others. Soon he understood the whole story, but no matter how he listened to it, it sounded like a heavenly book. Cultivator, Demon Clan? What was this? Not long later, the soldiers who were chasing Tang Zheng returned. They found nothing, and Kai Guibin could not help but feel a sense of defeat. However, although the sacrifices this time were not small, to be able to capture all the terrorists in one fell swoop, at least this operation was a success. Then he could report to the higher-ups. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.